This time we're going to call the meeting of October 7th, 2019 to order. Is there, City Attorney, do you want to present anything we're going to be discussing in closed session?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I'll read into the record that the City Council, if it's its desire, will adjourn into closed session to discuss the items agendized for closed session discussion. That would be number one, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, one potential case pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6B. Conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, Award Homes versus County of San Benito, the City of Hollister. And the third item, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, BMC Promise Way LLC versus County of San Benito and City of Hollister.
Okay, is there a motion to go to closed session?
So moved.
You need public comment first on closed session? If there
We
is.
can invite it.
Okay.
Is there any public
Second.
comment?
No.
Okay.
I have no speaker cards. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak publicly on the items going into closed session? I have no speakers, Mr. Mayor.
If there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Who made the motion? Carol?
Carol?
Carol, thank you.
how are you, Danny?
Where's mine?
All right, at this time, we're going to resume the meeting of October 7th, 2019. Councilmember Lenore, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Resendez,
Present.
Vice Mayor Richmond.
Here.
Mayor Velazquez,
Here.
Councilmember Spencer,
Here.
Councilmember Lenore,
Present.
City Manager Avra,
Present.
City Attorney Epperson,
Here.
Police Chief Westrick.
Here.
The amended agenda for the City of Hollister City Council regular meeting of October 7th, 2019 was posted on the bulletin board on October 4th, 2019 at 11:11 a.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you very much. City Attorney, will you please report out from closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report out of closed session is that the city council discussed in closed session those items agendized for closed session discussion. Direction was given to staff, and the city council adjourned from closed session at 6:36 p.m.
Thank you very much. Tonight, we have a proclamation for Seki Sake Day. And if the representatives would come up. Come on, come on. Come here. Pleasure. I'm excited to give this proclamation. A few weeks ago, I was invited to the 40th anniversary of our company here, Saki, and I was filled with history of their company. Their company opened in Japan over 300 years ago. I think it was 1711 when their company opened. To put that in perspective, that was about 21 years before our first president, George Washington, was even born. What a company. Now, what made it so exciting was the tour of the plant, understanding what the company does here and how they chose Hollister for their first location in the United States. And they're actually the first sake company in the United States, and they chose Hollister. Wow. Now, what's really impressive is the plant, all the great things they have here. The plant, and not only the plant, but the effort they have made to work with local residents and teach them how to become master sake makers, which is pretty cool. And these are our local residents, and I saw right away how much they care for our community, how proud they are of it, and how proud, I want you to know how proud we are of you, your company, for all they do for our community. And to top things off, after some sake that day, we broke a couple barrels and really had a enjoyable time, and I can tell you it is top notch. They presented the city of Hollister with a check for $3,000 as a thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I can't say thank you enough. I'm hoping we can use this to go towards our sister city funds, so we can establish that relationship again and meet up with our friends in Japan. And we're going to thank you one more time. And let me read this for you. Now, therefore, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, hereby proclaim May 21st, 2020, as Oseki Sake Day in the City of Hollister. That'll be your special day.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to say a few words? This is yours.
日本語で。
I'm taking the check back. though.
Yeah. Okay. So, じゃあI speak Japanese. 9月23日、市長に、我々の40周年記念行事に来ていただきまして本当にありがとうございます。我々は初めてアメリカで日本酒を作り始めました。その地はここホリスターです。お酒に適した水、それから、カリフォルニアの、サクラメントのお米、それと、ホリスターで働く我々の従業員と一緒に、お酒を作っております。これからも次の50周年に向けて、良いお酒を作り皆様に提供していきたいと思います。我々の、工場はまだテイスティングルームを持ちません。しかしながら、次の、大関の日2020年5月21日には、テイスティングルームを、オープンハウスをして、ホリスターの皆様をご招待したいと思います。ありがとうございました。
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna try to translate what you said.
Thank you.
There was a lot of stuff to say. Thank you for attending the party, Mayor, for our 40th anniversary party. We had a wonderful time, and we were grateful to be with you, with 4 employees who are with us more than 35 years. One of them was hired at the age of 19, and he stayed with the company 40 years. And he's still working today. We have some employees who have been working a long time. We chose Hollister because of the water, and we had access to the good rice grown in Sacramento area. That was the reason we chose this area. And since then, our locally produced sake has been increasing. We've been growing, we've been increasing the shipping amount. Business has been good. Hopefully we can celebrate for the 50th anniversary with you guys in 10 years. And also, our management in Japan gave us the okay to have a tasting room, which we don't have now. So hopefully we have an open house on the May 21st, 2020, and then have you guys at the place and for the celebration. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
That was a lot of fun. Phew. We had a request to move item G3 up, if that's all right with the council.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll move forward.
Yeah, she does. We need the pointer though. Okay, I can get started with this while he loads up the presentation. This item is an informational presentation related to traffic calming treatments. From time to time, the engineering department receives requests from city council members and the public to install traffic calming and other traffic control measures on streets with the intentions of promoting safety enhancement. This presentation will discuss the benefits as well as the drawbacks to traffic calming roadway improvements. To provide the City Council with more detailed discussion related to the benefits and drawbacks of traffic calming, Mr. Frederick Venter of Kimberly Horn will be providing the presentation on this matter. It is the intent of the presentation to provide the council with a better understanding of the issues that will be discussed and provide the City Council with the opportunity to ask questions for clarification. Following the presentation, staff requests the City Council's consensus on the direction to proceed with development of a traffic calming policy and guidelines. If it is the City Council's direction to develop such policy and guidelines, staff will return at a later date with a supplemental appropriation resolution to fund the project. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Frederick.
Mr. Mayor, council members, good evening. Thank you for moving it forward. It gets me home much sooner than I would have other been home, so thank you very much. So we're going to talk a little bit about traffic calming. This is going to be sort of a pros and cons and what's out there and what people do, and I've got a couple of example cities for you, and that's basically it. So there are a lot of slides. I'm going to go a little bit fast, but I hope you can follow it. It's really simple. So traffic calming is a roadway improvement implemented to reduce speed, number one, and encourage attentive driving, and may reduce or shift traffic flow. So that's a very important, that last bit, because people always think, oh, if I do traffic calming, I'm going to get rid of the traffic. You don't get rid of it, you move it to somebody else's street, because it becomes very important. So we usually approach traffic calming on a system-wide approach to make sure that if you do something, where does it go? Because you don't want the next neighbor and the next neighbor over to say, hey, look what you've done to my street now. We have basically 4 types of traffic calming measures. Number one is horizontal shifts. So it means that you do something with a roadway on a horizontal level. The other one would be vertical, so you go up or down. And then there's road closures, which has a very significant impact, and you can have partial closures or full closures. And then the other one is just to change people's behavior, right? Hey, you are in a neighborhood now where kids play on the street. Please slow down. That kind of just how do we make people more aware of their environment? So horizontal shifts means, like I said, you do something to the roadway that will reduce the speed, and where the vehicle actually then has to make a slight turn or divert a little bit. These are lateral shifts, curb extensions, diagonal diverters. So I'm going to show you examples of all of these: median barriers, islands, and realigned intersections, and then traffic circles or mini roundabouts. So the first one is a chicane. We see those pretty much being used very often, and this is a very easy one. It's basically you shift over traffic. What's nice is you can, if once you do the chicanes, you can do sort of bioswell, so it helps with stormwater treatment. Or if you just want to do like the one on the left, a little bit of hardscaping, fairly inexpensive. You still have your stormwater running, so you don't need to do a lot of extra work to accommodate that shift in traffic that you want. The benefits are a minimal anticipated volume diversion from the street, and you can have up to a 5% reduction in speed. Drawbacks, it doesn't, so that 5% may not be enough to get us to a level where we feel this is an appropriate speed for the street. And then sometimes the bicycles, so those are the tough ones. If you have a bike lane and you put those in, the bike also needs to shift, and sometimes if you don't provide for the bike lane, they need to share the road with cars. Curb extensions or bulb outs. This is a very favored implementation measure right now, especially on corners at intersections. They do work. Again, nice bioswells, stormwater treatment. You do need to watch, because if you put those in, trucks turning, making a right turn, they will not be able to make it unless they protrude in the opposing lane, so we've got to be very careful about these. If you do U-turns on some busier streets as well, you've got to be very careful with these. So the biggest one is there is a slight reduction in speed because you're narrowing the road slightly. It can provide a shorter pedestrian crossing. That's probably one of the biggest benefits that we see. And some of the drawbacks is, like I said, just that extension, making the turns, and then also they do result in a removal of on-street parking, which is of course not favored by many of the residents. A diagonal diverter is sort of a newer one, and we don't see too many of those, but they can be very efficient. If you look at the picture on the left, the aerial photo, that's a full intersection. So what happens, you can see how the cars are making sort of a 90-degree turn from the right going to the top. But what happens to the south, on the bottom part on the left-hand side, that's neighborhoods. So it becomes a cut-through route for traffic through the neighborhood. So the neighbor said, well, what can you do so that we don't have the cut-through traffic for your neighborhood? So in the graphic on the right-hand side, you will see that there's what we call this diagonal diverter. So you basically build a median diagonally across the intersection, right? So you force the traffic to stay on the route where they go, and they cannot cut through the neighborhood anymore. What's nice is you can do some nice landscaping, picture on the bottom, and you can accommodate pedestrians and bicycles to still allow them the through movement, but not vehicles. Sorry, let me just go back. So the moment you start doing these, you have bigger impacts right now. So what does fire do? How do they get to the homes? Ambulances, emergency services, transit buses. So you've got to be very careful about how you do this. Once you do these traffic calming measures, you also got to reach out to the various agencies and the services within the city departments. Median barrier. So this is where we would like to also, this helps to prohibit traffic cutting through neighborhoods. So you can put in like medians where the cross streets are, so that people cannot go through. You can see on those two movements that we show on the pictures, only allow left ins, no left outs. The one on the right is no cut through traffic, so no through traffic in the left, right, or east-west direction. Median islands. Those are more also to just narrow the roadway a little bit, so people don't go too fast. And they are also very efficient if you have a pedestrian crossing and you want to do a two-stage pedestrian crossing. And you can see there's a cyclist actually crossing the pedestrian there. The realigned intersections, we don't see too many, but sometimes if there's a sweeping curve and people go too fast or they don't stop, is that you just tighten it up. You put some medians and bulb outs in. You can see on the bottom corner, so you know what it will look like, and that way you slow people down, making turns from one street onto the next. So the traffic circles of the mini roundabouts, I think the picture at the top is actually yours. It's in the city, ones you've implemented fairly recently, very successful. So it's a circle, there's still a stop on the approaches, and you know, and you basically allow, so all this circle does is slows traffic down with the stop sign. At the bottom picture, you see what we would call a mini roundabout. So there we use the yield signs, which is very common, that goes with all roundabouts. And you can see there's the pedestrian crossings are separate, so they do have a different characteristic, but both of them do calm the traffic. They actually have, this is one of the biggest reductions in speeds that we do see on the road if you implement those. 10% is a very typical speed reduction. There's a little bit of difference here about, or just telling you, I think I said the stop sign, yield sign, roundabout versus traffic circle. And then you also install this, what we call a splitter island. That's sort of where you start separating the traffic so that you force them to go in a direction that's a diversion. That diversion through the mini roundabout force them to go at about 15 miles an hour, where the speed limit would maybe be 25 and they may be driving 30. So you can see how big that reduction is on the actual street. So vertical shifts is when you go up, and these have to do with anything where you raise it. So you can do speed bumps, you can do speed humps, we have speed cushions. We have raised pedestrian crossings, and we have raised intersections. Those are basically the whole toolkit of vertical deflections. They are also efficient in slowing down speeds, because you physically design that speed hump at a certain height and how you get over it. And that determines how fast the car can drive over it in an efficient and safe manner. But if they don't slow down, of course, then there's troubles, right? The cars will hit the speed hump, they will bottom out, or they can even become an errant vehicle. Some of them that we do see is the raised crosswalk. Quite a few cities do this, so you raise the actual crosswalk for the pedestrians. You build the bulb out so the pedestrians are more obvious, and then it becomes a way in which cars are slowed down, and there's a crossing that happens where the pedestrians go. Again, it may have an impact to emergency vehicle access, so we're going to talk about that in just a little bit, because that's probably one of the biggest drawbacks. This one is what we call a raised intersection. So you basically, you can see the entire intersection is sort of raised up. And it will be like one big speed hump that you see. So you slow onto it, you drive through the intersection. Once you get to the other side, you go down. So it's just an elongated speed hump in the longitudinal direction. Very expensive because you have a lot of pavement. You need to be careful also about stormwater and drainage. Do it in the right way, otherwise you run into trouble with these as well. So you can see that one is sort of not touching the curbs, and it was intentionally done that way not to impact stormwater. If you're going to hit your curbs on all the sides, you're going to hit stormwater, and then it becomes expensive to do. So the speed cushions or humps or tables are typically used where we see fire trucks, so fire trucks say, well, we don't want to go over the speed humps, and they traverse it. So you will see there's like flat spots in between them. You put that at the axle width of the fire truck, so the fire truck can drive over it. But the problems are that the ambulance the width of the axle on the ambulance is not that width, so the ambulance will still drive over the speed hump. This also results in avoidance, so a lot of people will actually shift their car to just drive one wheel over the hump and the other wheel in the gaps. Cyclists don't, they like them because they don't have to drive over the hump. Cyclists always complain about speed humps. Even though it doesn't have a big impact on them, we will always get a letter to say, I do not like speed humps on the road where I ride my bike. And then the speed cushions and the speed humps and tables, so here's a little bit of information on them. So they may have it that we talked about the 10% reduction. They may have an impact to emergency vehicles, we talked about that. Ambulance for patients, so that's the biggest one. Ambulances, time and time again, the emergency services will come to us and say it's very difficult to stabilize a patient in the back if the ambulance needs to drive over the speed humps. And many cities will disallow the speed humps only because of that fact. In the past, where speed humps were more like bumps, the very uncomfortable ones that you would see in the shopping centers, people would complain about getting back injuries of driving too fast over them because it's a very abrupt movement. But I think in the engineering industry, we've sort of worked out the science so that it is a more gradual traverse over the speed hump, but you have to drive the right speed. I mean, you can still get hurt real bad if you drive too fast over the speed hump. Of course, with the speed humps, you'll have the right signage, you'll have the right markings to warn people that you're actually installing this device on the road. What also happens sometimes with the speed humps is vehicles actually slow down and then they accelerate. So it may create additional noise that would otherwise not be there. Braking noise, the acceleration noise. So there's actually, if you do the math on greenhouse gas emissions, you will find that they actually emit more noise and more greenhouse gas emissions than you would have if they just traveled at a consistent speed. So we want to focus a little bit on the drawbacks, on specifically for Hollister. So this is I want to call it a contour map of your emergency response times. And we have 3 zones there, and there's color coding, and I know you can't see the detail, but just want you to know, so the lighter color shows the shortest response time, and the darkest color shows the longest response time. Okay. Typically, and it's approved by, I think, the state as well, your standard should be about 4-minute response time. That's acceptable, and if fire maintains that or emergency services maintain that, that means that you have a good response service in your town. And when you plan growth, this is one of the things fire looks at, and they say, well, we're building out, we need a new fire station because we cannot serve the response times that we need to do. So the red line that you see there on the graphic is actually the 4-minute response time for Hollister. So if we went and we installed traffic calming measures, and especially the speed humps, not the other ones, but the speed humps where we know the fire trucks and the ambulances need to slow down, I want to show you what happens with that response time. You can see how the 4 minutes go down, right? So the travel time now, because they take longer, they can serve less of the population within the 4 minutes. And this is just an example. It doesn't mean that it's on every road, but this is an implication of installing vertical traffic calming devices. Still, there's a lot of cities that say, yes, we do want them. So, so in this vertical shifts, that we looked at. I'm going to share a couple of examples and comments with you. So the first one here is that the speed hump or table, the race tables can cause between 3 to 10 seconds of delay per hump, depending on a vehicle type. Now you will also remember that we put these usually in series. It's not just one that you install, so you install them about 300 to 500 feet spacing. And as you install them, you have a bunch of humps, so you slow down the emergency vehicles over a length of that roadway. To efficiently calm traffic, I said 2 to 3 speed humps. Additionally, there's been concerns on vehicle damage when traveling at higher speeds than recommended, so if people do not slow down, tire damage, vehicle damage. There's less research on impact to ambulances. However, a study from Maryland found that there was approximately a 4-second delay per hump for ambulances. So if you have a patient in the back, they actually need to slow down significantly to not have an impact. And we had I did a project where we actually had ambulances do that. And the biggest concern was, so if you have a fracture, a patient with a fracture is the one that's most sensitive to pain, driving over a speed hump. Stabilization is for patients that had heart attacks. So how do you make sure that that shock of the impact doesn't impact the patient, right? Driving over the speed hump. In the city of Austin, there was a 14% increase in response times due to traffic calming devices. This translated to an additional 37 people dying per year than what the historical average was. So that's the only sort of information we could find out there about, yes, it calms the traffic, yes, everybody's slower, but for response times and EV, it is a problem. There we show you the big fire truck. So that was the one where you can traverse the speed cushions. On the right-hand side, that's a device that I've not seen used. The only Portland, Oregon uses them, so it's sort of a device plus this little shift that you have, but people tend to also drive like that, which you don't want. So some of the agencies around here that have established policies that do not allow traffic calming devices on arterial roads or any roads used by emergency vehicles will be Gilroy, City of Monterey, City of Salinas, and City of Watsonville. So those are neighbors of yours, right, that I think you can are familiar with. Agencies have also provided policies that require fire department approval before implementing any traffic calming measures. So even if we do a traffic calming program with the neighbors, we are not allowed to present anything unless fire or police buys off on that, especially in these cities where you have the policies. And then we discussed the offset tables. So the other one was closures that you remember. So closures are pretty easy. You just close a road. You say, listen, we want a traffic calming measure. People are speeding through the neighborhood. Now, this is where you got to be very careful, because if you close the road again, the traffic goes elsewhere. That's the biggest warning that I have. I've seen in Berkeley, they've opened up a couple of closures because they closed them off. People went to other streets. The neighbor said, whoa, you doubled the traffic on my street. But if you're clever and you can do it, right, you do allow opening for bicycles and pedestrians. So allow the multimodal, the shortcut through, but for the vehicles you do it otherwise. These are the partial closures, so you maybe only close it in one direction, not in the other. So you lessen that. If there's a shift in traffic, it can be less, not the full street that's shifting. And there's one that shows how we close it off, and there's still that way, the one in the middle, actually the emergency vehicles can still get through. To have access, so they're not hampered in their response time. So behavioral changes. So that's where we try to create a neighborhood feeling. Number one is some pavement art. These are crosswalks that we've seen being used. So you generate that feeling of you're now entering a neighborhood. Please don't speed. This is a very unique space, especially for the people that live there. The radar speed feedback signs, I think those have all been installed very successfully. Historically, they've never been successful, but lately we've seen tremendous drops. I just did a project in the city of Monterey where we saw a 15% drop in speed limits, which has been tremendous. Those become extremely clever nowadays. You can actually program them, so you always say thank you, and in green, and so you can have those that have a flasher light on it. Well, the latest thing that we see is the youngsters actually see how fast they can go because they want to record the time, right? So you can set the speeds on it that it actually, if it goes, let's say, over 35, it'll blank out, right? So they don't get that satisfaction of getting the. And then the other thing is just you got to be careful because they also flash at night. So people that live close by, the flashing light bothers them. So you can actually turn them off. Let's say after 9 p.m., they go dark. They do record the data. That's the other nice thing. They can record every car, and the city can get very easy reports. Within a week, you can have 13,000 records, right? So really, really nice data, and you can see if it's efficient, where it works. They work with solar power, so they become very cheap. You don't need to run a line to them. So that's probably one of the cheapest, best implementation measures that we've seen lately in the field. There's a couple more examples of the colored paving markers that you see. Speed limit sign we spoke about. So things to consider when implementing traffic calming measures is just the appropriateness, right? And you got to look at it as a system basis, right? It needs to fit within that neighborhood, not just the street. Think about everybody around there. They need to be effective and efficient. Your bicycle and pedestrian activity, you can very easily install things and all of a sudden you've got the cyclists upset. How do you accommodate the pedestrians so they feel safe as well? Parking, don't take away parking. That's it's the deal killer everywhere. But parking is still, is very sacred with all our communities. I always joke and say, I can drive around the neighborhood and I'll have a whole box of scotch with me and nobody will park in their garage. They park on the street in front or in the driveway, but they use their garage for something else. So parking on the street, very important. Again, EV and the bus access on your roads, and then the community impact, right? So neighbors need to understand what it means to them and be careful of noise. So there's a bunch of measures that everybody thinks are traffic calming measures. So they're not in the book, if you go look at them, as identified as traffic calming measures, but they do slow traffic down. It doesn't mean that you don't do them. We do install them when warranted and when we do engineering studies. So here's the list, and there are all the pictures. Fire do take out the police department have these mobile trailers that they do with the speed monitoring. But again, they're out there, they work for the week, police takes it away, next week people speed again. But they are just to record the data and make people aware they work. Roundabouts definitely slow traffic down, but it's primarily a control measure. So instead of having a signal, we install a roundabout because they're good for safety, better for greenhouse gas emissions, and also they reduce delays. Road diets can also slow down traffic speeds a little bit. It's because you're narrowing the lane a little bit, and you don't have 4 lanes, which is so wide, and you don't have the traffic volume, so people will drive 45 instead of 35. If you narrow it down a little bit, you take the lanes away, people also drive slower. Stop signs and signals are not traffic calming devices. That will, I'm pretty sure you get, the city staff gets a request every month to say, please install the stop sign, it will slow traffic down. Unfortunately, there's history that shows if you install a stop sign that accidents may increase. So if that stop sign is not warranted and the attorney gets hold of it, everybody will get sued, and I promise you will lose, okay, if there's an accident. So city attorney is here. Striping. So striping is a very different one. So sometimes people feel that striping on a road, so on a neighborhood street that's more narrow, if you put it in, it may feel too narrow and they don't want to do it. Other times people will feel the stripe is in. Other times they'll say that stripe is in. I have guidance, I can drive a little faster. So it depends, again, that local character of how you're going to do it on the street. Placemaking is the other one. So that's about, again, creating that character, making it nice. And placemaking is all about, I have that somewhere. It's about bringing in some art, creating some sidewalk, doing those bulb outs, putting in some landscaping. So create that feeling of this is not a highway. It doesn't look like Highway 25. This looks like a nice local street in the city that I want to drive on. That's it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Do you have? Go ahead,
Do
Danny.
you have any questions?
We'll ask in a second, but did you have a statement you wanted to make at all, Danny?
Excuse me, I didn't.
Did you have a statement you wanted to make before we ask
no,
questions?
it's following any questions that you have for Frederick, and then also Brian is going to speak on this issue also.
Okay.
So if you,
So,
if the council
do we
has
have any questions?
No questions.
Oh, wait. Brian, go ahead.
Good evening. Just wanted to inform the council that staff and the RMA director with the county have been discussing possible traffic calming ways on Buena Vista Road. A lot of complaints from the public. We recognize from the city and the county perspective that we do need to try to do something to slow some traffic down. And so probably in a week, we'll be meeting with the county, RMA director, Frederick Venter, on coming up with ways just to have some traffic calming measures. And eventually, what we want to do is come up with a CIP project from these meetings to bring to the council, just to keep everyone informed. And I think the county recently indicated they would put about $270,000 towards any project on Buena Vista Road. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there, just to let everyone know. So.
Okay. Councilmember Sendes?
Sure. Can you guys hear me? Is this thing on? No. Okay. So in regards to Buena Vista, I think they did approve that amount at the last County Board of Supervisors meeting, and I think that they're going to approve more. So I think we talked about this during my informational report. I'm real excited. We get a lot of complaints, and there's a lot of development going on out there. So I think this is a really good opportunity for us to partner with the city and be very proactive about how we want the look and feel of that arterial road to be. As far as traffic calming measures in general, I have a couple of thoughts I wanted to share. I think that they should be semi-consistent, whatever we do choose to do. I really do appreciate and value that we're doing these meetings with the public. I think we should continue to do that, because if we don't have buy-in and feedback from them, then they're not going to abide by whatever we put out there. So I'm glad that we're being proactive and we're doing that. So that takes precedent over everything. But just on a personal note, I really like the idea of like branding and taking ownership with art and the crosswalks and that type of thing, community placemaking, because it really does change the look and the feel. And we can really personalize that. Like if we were to do it on you know, like let's say on the west side, and they were to say like, you know, Via Hermosa or Tortilla Flats or whatever, but if it could be consistent, and they do that in other cities and stuff, and I think that would really, really change the behavior that's going on there. Also, maybe you guys can help me out with this. I live by the high school, and I had heard that the speed tables that were put in place there, I think I heard this from the school, that they're essentially ineffective because the fire department had requested that they lower the height of them. So I'm just wondering that if we are going to get final approval from the fire department, can we be notified of that? I just think that it's a waste of time and resources if we're going to lower them and they're not effective. That was my concern about the speed tables over at the high school. I think it was like 4 inches or something. They lowered it down. I can't remember the exact what went on with that, but that was something I think we should probably stay in the loop of and just make sure that they're really going to work if we're going to put the money and time and energy into it.
You know, it's interesting. We can try to plan our streets and roads as best as possible to slow traffic down, but boy, we can't control the people behind the wheel sometimes. So, but you know, traffic calming is one way to kind of slow that down, and so you know, that's definitely a great point, Councilmember Sendes. So we'll make sure we do that.
To answer the question on the speed, they were not lowered at all. They're the same.
Okay. Councilmember Lenore?
I don't want to talk about specific projects, but I gotta remind you folks that you have a major arterial running through the downtown. I'm not getting anywhere with it. So if you're gonna do this, I want some consideration for, it's everybody's downtown. That's the point of this, is that area there, that's their street. But everybody comes downtown, and what are we gonna do, some traffic calming on there or not? We're supposed to. And if we're gonna expend money, I'd like to know why we can't expend some on San Benito Street in the downtown core. I keep hearing we don't have any money, so now I'm hearing maybe money for Buena Vista Road. I got more complaints on San Benito than they'll ever have on Buena Vista. Thank you.
Yep.
I think part of the issue there is a school, so people are racing even with the kids out there.
They're racing with senior citizens stepping off the curb.
Yeah, they're racing everywhere.
They don't wanna go downtown
Exactly
and
right.
shop.
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Danny, did you say you're gonna make a separate presentation? Did you say you're gonna make a separate presentation about coming up with a policy?
No, not a separate presentation. What I'm going to ask is for consensus direction from the council tonight. If you want me to come back at a future date for funding, to fund a project so that we can develop traffic calming policy and guidelines.
I guess my question is this: Would a policy and guidelines be such that it will keep us from having to do the same preparation over and over and over again? In other words, we're going to save some. We're going to save some. Be able to implement things more completely, get a better result with on the long run with spending less money on making a mistake. If we have a policy.
Well, what a policy will do, it'll give you a range of guidelines that you can work from. We would bring these things to the council and have them review and adopt a policy along with guidelines that we would work
Okay.
from. There would still need to be studies and different things on a policy-specific basis.
Oh, okay, there would be.
Yes.
My last comment is this. When we do talk to the public about the options, this may be before the policy comes in. Maybe, we do every day.
Yeah.
Make sure we talk about the disadvantages as presented here. Let's not just, many people think about the advantages because they don't think about the possible disadvantages because they may not be aware of them or have run into them.
Yeah.
So I think to get the public fully informed, it's best to say, here are some options for you. Here are the advantages, we think the advantages are, and here's the degree of that advantage, and here are the disadvantages. And you have to keep those in mind because you will remember the disadvantages after the item is in. I assure you that.
I
Thank
agree.
you.
That's one thing that I enjoyed about Frederick's presentation. He showed the drawbacks, and those are things that need to be discussed just as
I want
much
to
as
make sure the
benefit.
public doesn't say, oh, if you put in speed humps, that solves all the problems.
Yeah.
People tend to think like that. We all do. It's just human nature. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to first thank everybody that's been involved, putting the signs up. That's, I think, has been a great success. I know before David would pull the trailer around and park it when somebody would complain, and we get some results there. But the technology today, with all the information it provides, and when I'm driving down the street, I see the slow down or thank you and all these things. It's nice because I think most people want to do the right thing, but they're not even aware of the issue. The road, we kind of did a test case out there,
Cienega.
I drive that quite a bit to get the feel of it. I think it's working well, and I'm looking forward to getting the input back from the residents that live there. I think one of the most effective things we could be doing right now, besides adding more signs, is the striping. We know, I think part of the problem in the past has been great ideas, too much money. Striping can create a bulb out that's a visual, and it's amazing how you react to lines in the road. Along with Buena Vista, 4th Street, we have a perfect example of this. 4th Street, where we redid the road and the striping is there, it's nice and calm.
Yes.
You pass that block and there's no stripe, people are up on the lawns and just going every which way. So, these are places we could work with that we can probably afford to do much more than if we're trying to just do one big project. In other words, this is a challenge for the community, our city financially, but we need to pick areas, maybe the top 10, figure out what we can do, at least temporary striping or something until we get to the point, and make sure we have the signs and reminding people to slow down.
Yes.
And I have seen it different, and I think it's important for everybody to understand. I drive around every day in cities all over the place. Exact same problems everywhere. For some reason, people have decided traffic laws don't apply to them any longer, and it's going to be more of a visual to change things here. Otherwise, it's just not gonna work. So, thank you for the presentation, all the information.
Thank you. So,
Bill?
Oh, go ahead.
no, so if I can get a consensus direction from the council as to if they want me to come back with a supplemental appropriation.
Yeah,
so-
we'll get some public comment first, and Bill had a comment.
Okay.
Oh, no, I just think it's really ironic. I don't know if you folks have been to Monterey Street this morning or this afternoon, because we had thank God it wasn't worse than it was, but we had an incident last night as a result of a speed table or hump. So it happened to occur kind of in the evening hours. Thank God there wasn't a family walking on the sidewalk, because when you look at where the car ended up, it could have been very tragic for a family or something like that. So when you're looking at these things, and I really think we should take a lot to heart what Frederick was saying, is about there are some disadvantages, and there are some things that, speed humps, of course, nobody's supposed to go that fast over them, but it happens. So I just take a look at the situation if you haven't been out there. So.
Councilmember Resendez?
I am in favor of that, but I was just wondering if there's any way we can adopt that into our general plan or include it, kind of like what we did with the Parks Master Plan. Since we're going to work on it, I'm just wondering if we can include that so that future developments can also follow the same.
Well, the guidelines would be, when they're developed, they'd be brought
Perfect.
back to council.
Perfect.
They'd be adopted as a standalone document.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see, do we have any public comment on this item?
I have no speaker cards, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody here would like to speak on this at all? No? Okay. I think there is a consensus to keep working towards this.
Okay.
Again, I think have gone through this for several years now, the reality is the financial part of this. And again, striping is very effective and signs are very effective. We've seen it. How do we put the policy together to make sure that, as Councilmember Resendez pointed out, no new neighborhoods, we don't make the same mistakes.
Yes.
Make sure we're not creating drag strips like we have now on Ladd Lane and Southside Road. 4 lanes, and you'll have a car come by every few minutes.
Yeah.
And then a drag race every 15 minutes. So we got to change some of these areas and really look at our top 10, figure out what we can do, at least on a temporary basis, until we get a permanent fix.
All right, sounds good.
So thank you for bringing this
We are
forward.
supporting him coming back with a
Yes.
policy?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep.
I
you.
support that.
All right. We're going to go ahead and move to the, do we have students here tonight?
Yeah.
Why don't we take a 5-minute break and we can sign you guys out unless you want to hang out with us for
Why
another
are they getting
hour or
signed
two?
out already
7:30 is when they,
Oh, that's
you
the
go out.
time
Yeah.
they stay? Yeah.
yeah, an hour. They have to spend an hour with us.
I'll make them
so.
stay the whole meeting if I was.
They start sneaking out.
You would be here.
Come on up.
That's
and
why
get your
you're not a
paper
teacher,
signed.
Carol.
What, they come for an hour, what's that?
That's all they have to do, but they gotta do it 3 times.
I think we should all suffer together.
Don't go, Carol. She wants you guys to stay. No. Yeah, no, that ain't good. Don't expect that. Come on. Yeah, that was a very unique situation. That was not a smart move. Yep, if you do me, it would be very boring.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and resume the meeting. We're going to move to the consent agenda. Are there any items council would like to pull?
A8, please.
A8. Any others? Do we have any from the public?
A8 and A9.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move that we adopt the consent resolution outside of A8 and A9.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. We'll go to item A8.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Item A8 is a supplemental appropriation for $30,000 to purchase 10 more radar speed limit signs so that we can put them on the main streets. We got all the schools covered now, so now we can get them on the main cross-town thoroughfares.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Yes, I didn't know we were gonna do the presentation of this one first. So all that's been covered about how effective they are. The only comment I have was that I was approached by several people downtown who asked if we could put some of those on San Benito Street. I would only ask the staff to look into it, and as you obviously would for the most effective place to put them. But it apparently these people think it's effective. I think it's effective, and it's one of the more effective items listed there. So anything to slow down the traffic on San Benito Street, and it will not affect the storm drains. Thank you.
Okay, we had a member from the public that.
Kathina Cicero.
I hope I'm not being repetitive. Mr. Mayor, Councilman, Councilwoman, my name is Kathina Cito, owner of a small gift shop in downtown Hollister. I'd like to express support for the radar speed signs. They're helpful for us drivers to be aware of the speed we are going, as well as what the speed limit is. I am also here to request your consideration for 2 of these useful traffic calming tools to be placed in the heart of downtown, one in each direction. During the weekdays, most of my customers are seniors with experience of a wonderful Hollister downtown. We see families visiting with young ones, some with strollers, and a bit of tourists on the weekends. The number one reason they say they do not walk around, cross the street, visit shop to shop, or return frequently is because the downtown Main Street feels like a thoroughfare, not really a welcoming small business neighborhood. During the wine stroll, temporary stop signs were used to create a more walkable, sociable setting. I believe adding a couple radar speed signs will be a very good start in helping build a much desired pedestrian-friendly environment. More customers will feel at ease to stroll daily, helping downtown businesses grow, adding much more sales tax revenue, and in turn encourage more businesses to invest. If we could just begin with implementing 2 radar speed signs in the heart of downtown and measure the sales tax increase, perhaps that data can provide additional insights to the future plans of downtown. This can also help and provide a positive environmental impact as well. Thank you so much for your consideration and support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Sanders, you had a comment?
Yeah, 2 things. Number 1, do you know that ours collect data for sure?
They do not collect data.
Okay.
She was asking us to study the sales tax data.
So I liked the ones that he said collect data, because I think that can help us later on when we want to, it probably might lessen our cost with traffic studies and that type of thing if we can just gather those that data. So if we can purchase some that collect data, if they're relatively affordable, I think that would be very good on our part, right?
We actually do have some that do that, but they're not radar signs. They're much cheaper too. Those are like $4,000 a piece, I believe, only.
What do you mean they're not radar signs?
They're actually traffic measurement devices. We actually have 2 in the city, right?
What,
I have
the-
one, you have one, right?
The trailers?
The boxes. No, the boxes.
Oh, the boxes? I
Yeah.
think the engineering department has like 8 of them.
I just think if we're going to spend that much money, then it can serve the dual purpose. I think it's a good investment on our part to make sure that it's not only slowing traffic, but collecting data at the same time, because that's going to really help out the people that we're contracting with, Kinley Horn. So if we could just look into that, I guess I would probably be, if the council would agree, opposed to, voting for this tonight, looking into that and then bringing it back to see if we can if we're going to be purchasing them, because I am very much in favor of these, but I would love for them to serve that purpose just so that we can collect data. Yes. One other quick thing was, I was just wondering the locations and how do you determine that? Can you just enlighten us on that just quickly, if you may?
There's a calculus involved. So we don't want it anywhere near a crosswalk where it's going to distract the driver from looking for a pedestrian in the crosswalk. We look at the amount of signs in the area so that they're not overwhelmed by the amount of signs, because the last thing we want to do is contribute to the problem of a distracted driver with this sign. So, and we look for long straightaways between traffic control devices such as stop signs, stoplights, etc., where a car's speed could drift up, and that's where we've been trying to place them.
If we can just get like a list of locations. I mean, I'm getting a lot of inquiries. The public is in love with these, and like they want it right there on their street in front of their house. So if we could just make sure, I don't know how we can solve that, but I'd really like to see more of this.
Mayor?
Yes.
I think too, what I like to point out is when you have the speed limit that's dropping down, and they don't realize it's dropped down from 30 to 25.
Yeah.
I know it's maybe next to a corner where you know I'm talking about, it goes from 30 to 25, but they're not going 30, and they're certainly not going 25, but where there's a speed differential might be some consideration there.
It is also part of the consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Spencer.
I was just gonna go back to, what Councilman Resendez said to get the, radar things with the, data. If we already have 8 boxes, we can put those where we need to collect the data we need and still go ahead and buy the 10, additional, radar speed limit signs, because they do slow people down. People see them, they see how fast they're going, and they do slow down. I think that we need these. We need them downtown, and just do the data boxes in certain areas.
I think, and I apologize, I don't want to necessarily confuse the things too much. I think, I agree. I think if there's a radar, a speed limit sign that's electronic that can collect data, I think that we should be looking at buying those. My recommendation would be to move forward with these 10, because probably the data collection ones you're going to swap out with some that are already existing, right? You're not going to have 10 new data collectors, because I think some of the ones that we have out there are probably in good locations to receive that constant data from. And I agree, that's probably a useful tool. So what we can do is, if this gets approved tonight, we'll order the 10 regular ones. We'll come back maybe in the first meeting in November with the prices on the data collection one, and we'll identify the locations for you of which signs we should swap out, like on Buena Vista or Santa Ana, those big arterials or the larger arterials where they're used. Yeah, and I think that might be the best thing. Yes.
Yeah, because the other thing is it's gonna give us some more insight on the return on our investment. Are these in fact working? Like, we can say that they're working, we think they're working, but if we have data to prove, yeah, these are working, this is a great investment, and then it's gonna help with the traffic analysis as well.
Yeah.
I would say I agree with everyone here. I think the collecting information is critical. You know, when I first started seeing these signs 7, 8 years ago at one of the first shows I went to, they showed you the speed and that was about it. Then the next year it came back where if you went past the speed, a light flashed, made people think their picture was being taken. Now it's all kinds of information. It's exciting to see this happening. We need the data so that we understand what's happening throughout the neighborhoods. It's going to help with our traffic enforcement officers too, when we're seeing areas that we're seeing people speeding. So, you know, this is not going to be the last 10 we're going to purchase. I can tell you that. It's been a success. We do need them on, as you point out, now on some of the major roads. Start slowing people down there, and then we'll take a look again what other areas we can go to. So it's exciting. So thank you very much for doing the research on it. Okay, there's no other speakers? Correct.
I have no other speak.
Is there a motion?
Well, I make a motion that we, I agree that we should look at the other, but for tonight, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2019-220, Resolution City Council Hollister appropriating $30,000 Fund 101, balance to purchase 10 additional radar speed signs for installation throughout the city.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're going to move to item A9.
A9 is requested permission to donate 2 surplus police cars to the San Benito High School Auto Shop program. I was contacted by Airport Commissioner who owns Napa. Said that a lot of the students in the program don't have their own cars, so they don't have cars to work on, and they were hoping that maybe we had some that we were going to surplus. We do. We have 2 that are in decent shape and 2 that are just destroyed. So we're off. I would like to request your permission to offer them the 2 that are in decent shape so that we can get the next generation trained up on turner wrenches. We're going to need those guys soon.
I have lots of cars I can fix. The new cars. Is there any comments? This is from the public.
It was, yes. Resolution number 2019-221, resolution of the City Council of the City of Hollister donating 2 surplus police vehicles to the San Benito High School Auto Shop program. I have one speaker card, Tom Agan.
Good evening, City Council. First of all, I'd really like to thank you guys. Getting current, up-to-date vehicles to train our students on is extremely difficult and frankly kind of costly. It's really easy to get old, worn-out vehicles that won't pass smog, you know, that are 20 years old. I can get that all day long. I can't get current, up-to-date vehicles that students are going to be working on very soon when they graduate. Those are almost impossible to afford. So this is a huge shot in our arm. I've got roughly 135 students a year that go through our program, and many of those students are now either being hired right off our campus or are going on to trade schools or junior college programs. To give you some numbers, our advanced class last year graduated, I want to say about 22 students. 14 of those already had either jobs lined up or were headed to further training. So we've got some pretty good numbers going down there. I think we do a real thorough job, and we just appreciate your assistance in this whole process. It means a lot to us.
Okay.
If there are any questions, I'd love answering
just so I'm
questions.
clear, so are you looking for cars that's from the public to donate them, or just bring them in? You guys can work on them, and if you can fix them, you can fix them, type of deal, or they pay for the parts and.
Yeah.
What do you need?
Yeah.
So we can help you.
Absolutely. The donated cars are probably our biggest emphasis. Honestly, I don't need massive quantities of cars, but honestly, if we could get a couple, 2, 3 fairly fresh cars a year, that would mean a huge amount to us. As far as the general public coming in and working on the general public cars, we're not actually allowed to do that.
Okay.
We do work on staff vehicles, and they sign a waiver, and there's all kinds of stuff involved there. But there's an awful lot of instruction that goes on, and there's always a constant balance between how many vehicles we have coming in as a customer vehicle versus the instruction that I've got to do, and anyway, we've got to be a little careful with that whole part of it.
No problem. Just so we can ask the public and get cars for you. I mean, that's, if you can make us a picture, I'm sure all of us would share that.
Absolutely.
With the public, and
No,
buying
what
some
you've done
cars.
here is perfect. The donation is by far the most effective, for us and what we need. So
Okay.
we appreciate that. Hopefully it's something we can continue possibly in the future.
Okay, Vice Mayor
And ask the
Richmond.
county too.
Vice Mayor Richmond has a
Absolutely.
question.
That's a great idea.
They have something.
That is an excellent idea.
Vice Mayor Richmond.
You do understand we're gonna take the light bars off those police
You
cars,
can
right?
take
Oh,
anything
okay.
that you
Just wanna
want.
make-
Now,
Just wanna make sure that was
just
clear.
To be,
That's not.
I think
don't
I
worry
timed
about
out.
it. You're
That's
good.
all right.
To be clear, these vehicles will never be registered. They're taken out of the DMV system. They are never driven on the street again. Their life ended when they were donated.
I saw
So-
the Blues Brothers movie,
Yeah.
so I know what can happen.
So, yeah.
All right, any other questions, comments? Any other speakers on this? Thank you. Tom.
Thank you very much.
Okay, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept resolution number 2019-221, a resolution of the city of the City Council of the City of Hollister donating 2 surplus police vehicles to the San Benito High School Auto Shop program.
Okay, there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. We're gonna move to public input. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speaker cards are available in the lobby and are to be completed and given to the city clerk before speaking. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have any cards tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we've received written correspondence from Joseph Thompson. My first speaker is Sam Perez. Sorry, someone messed with my thing, so.
Yeah? I know, I'm not being timed right now, yeah. Okay, thank you, Christy. Okay, thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members, for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Sam Perez, and I come to you tonight as a concerned community member. Since March of 2018, the medical community, public health staff, parents, teachers, and most importantly, our youth, have come to these meetings pleading with you to adopt a policy prohibiting the sale of e-cigarettes and other flavored tobacco products. Here we are, a year and a half later, and with all due respect, how many ad hoc committee meetings can we have? How many town hall meetings can we have? How many children in our community have started using these products since March of 2018? And how much more time needs to go before we address the increasing amount of youth taking up vaping in the city of Hollister? Unless someone's living under a rock, nobody can say that this vaping is a healthy alternative to smoking. If the scenario was different and one person became ill from eating contaminated romaine lettuce, all the lettuce in the entire county would be removed from the shelves before sunrise. Should we not consider that this product that has killed 21 people and created a lifetime of pulmonary issues for over 1,080 people in the past 2 months, that's 8 weeks, the same? And I need to remind you that 37% of those who are affected are under the age of 20. Our community is a ticking time bomb, waiting for its first case, and it's coming. It defies logic that we would not be pushing an ordinance through record speed to protect our youth. When we look at ourselves in the mirror tonight, we need to ask ourselves, are we doing everything that we can to create a safe and healthy environment for the youth in our community? This is your time to do just that. Please make this your priority. Thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn Mello.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. I'm Lynn Mello. Deputy Director and Director of Nursing Public Health Services with the county. Over the past year, I've been quietly supporting and observing our dedicated and highly competent public health services staff and our city council to advocate for the health and well-being of the citizens of our community, specifically on local policy to limit sales on flavored tobacco products. Public health staff have met with city officials and staff, rallied youth, conducted their own sting operations, have presented hard facts in numerous city council meetings, have worked with the city ad hoc committee, shown up with children and parents at a town hall meeting, and have worked tirelessly to advocate for optimal health in our community. Progress has been extremely slow and controversial on this issue. I commend all of you, our public health staff, city council staff. This is a difficult democratic process. But we've now crossed into new territory. Each week since August, I've received health alerts and health advisories from the California Health Alert Network and the Centers for Disease Control on severe lung injuries and deaths throughout the state and the nation due to vaping. We now have a public health outbreak on our hands. As of October 1st, 2019, 1,080 lung injury cases associated with using e-cigarettes or vaping products have been reported to the CDC from 48 states and 1 U.S. territory. Sam said 21 deaths. I have 18 deaths have been confirmed in 15 states. 2 have been in California. The California Department of Public Health and the Centers for Disease Control have recommended that everyone refrain from vaping. This outbreak is going to continue and expand, just like the opioid epidemic. The hospitalizations and lung injuries that incapacitate young people will continue. Vaping deaths and lung injuries will arrive to our community. In light of this new frontier that we face with e-cigarettes, I want you all to think hard and to search deeply within yourselves about this issue. I want you to think about where you stood on this issue when you have to face a family whose son or daughter is incapacitated due to lung injury, or the financial burden they have to endure due to medical costs due to their child's lung damage, or when you have to face a parent whose son or daughter died as a result of vaping. I implore you to support the health of this community and to act ethically and in a way that preserves lives and families that we all are responsible to. Thank you for your
Thank you very
attention
much.
and hard work on this.
Marilyn Ferreira.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Marilyn Ferreira. I live at 1131 Union Heights Drive in Hollister, and I care very much about this community. Lately, with the bright sun and the days getting darker sooner, I've encountered some terrible things near the high school, down the road to Nash Road, right before Dave's, where those apartments are, on West Side. People park on the right-hand side. There's never any police around there. They jaywalk. This morning I was going to work. Unfortunately, I drive slowly because I care and I certainly don't want to hit anybody. But a mother grabbed her 4 or 5-year-old child out and ran across the street right in front of me, and she saw me coming. They expect us to stop on a dime. The kids at the high school don't look where they're walking. Richard and I are going to go to the high school board and talk to them. We're very concerned about it. There is going to be something really awful happening around that high school. We don't have an increase in enrollment that much, but now it's cordoned off by the gates, and the kids don't care where they walk. They just walk out in front of you. They turn right in front of you. They're coming out of the parking lot. And I just want to say, I'm glad you're addressing traffic down San Benito Street, but we have to look at the whole picture, because just in the last few days, I have a friend that's a fireman, and he told me about 3 terrible accidents that happened in this community today and this morning and over the weekend. We're a time bomb. The vaping is bad, but we're killing each other now, and we have to be concerned about traffic and training pedestrians to be courteous. And downtown, they walk across and they don't even look. And I had my first accident coming out of my parking lot, and I decided, do I want to be broadsided or have him hit me in the fender? And I stopped and I let him hit me because I didn't want that bag going off. Just trying to pull out of my parking lot. And I always look both ways. Thank you for your time. And may I tell you, today's been a pleasure to be at a meeting with you. You're all working together, and it makes me happy to see that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Marilyn.
Richard Ferreira.
Richard Ferrer, 1131 Union Heights Drive. Mr. Mayor, Councilman. In spite of my wife, I had been planning to come in before you and turn in Speaker card already, but I'm going to address pedestrian problems also. Historically, students were taught in school at a young age and always to look, before you enter a street, look both ways, stop, listen, and look both ways. The kids today walk right out into the intersection. They don't slow down. They don't look either direction. And most of the time, they're got their cell phone up. In fact, today, and I was about 3-4 blocks from the high school at a 4-way stop. Cars are backed up. I start across the intersection, go straight through. I'm halfway through the intersection. A kid walks right out in front of me. Without even, see this kid walking? He doesn't turn their head either way, walks right out in front of me. Lucky I could still stop pretty fast. What I'm suggesting, it's city streets, laws, there must be a law. Dave must be able to tell us of a law these kids aren't doing. But what needs is education. Either the law enforcement or the city or something has to get with the school board or with the school and start teaching these kids. I've gone in other cities and they even have painted on the street, stop, look both ways. These kids, somebody's going to get hurt. So we need to have that taken, and I think education is where it has to be started. I'm glad you had the calming down. I've come before you before on the downtown. I've been driving in this community for 64 years. I was cruising in the 50s. So I went up and down San Benito Street many times. Historically, people come into town and they want to go from north to south. A wise man named Dick Brune, when he came to town, told me how to cure the problem. The same way they have over in downtown Salinas. We should make this Hollister from South Street to 4th Street one way, northbound only. That'll break the people automatically coming into town. Make it one way, and you don't have to make streets other. There's only a few blocks. There's not much commercial on the other streets, and they back. And to me, that would cure the problem. It would slow the people down, and it would create a place for the people to come to shop downtown. We do own some property, commercial downtown, and I think that's the answer, and I would like you to consider it. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no more speaker cards, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move to item D1, City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a quick question for those members on COG and have some experience with Measure G, when that is for that's for our Streets and Roads program, the sales tax initiative that we recently adopted. Is curb gutter and sidewalk and road repair part of that program, or is it just asphalt? Has there been any discussion on whether that would be an appropriate use of funds? Because as the public was just commenting, from West Side Boulevard to about the terraces, there is not curb and gutter on what I'd call the south side of Nash Road, and there's a few areas in town where there's gaps where obviously there's not curb, gutter, and sidewalk. And I didn't know if that was something that had been discussed as part of the Measure G road funds or not. And if you haven't discussed it, that's fine. I mean,
We have not discussed in that detail. The money was
okay, just
supposed to
for-
be used
sure.
for road repairs
Okay.
and
Okay.
new roads.
Fair
but
enough.
I can ask the question. At the
Okay.
next-
Because we do have, like in our gas tax money, it's usually right away to right away, so you can use that. So if it was under those same sort of rules or similar guidelines, then we might be able to fix some of those areas. But
May I ask?
Yeah.
Part of that still county?
no, the
south-
section that I'm looking at right now, the south side of Nash, from essentially West Side Boulevard all the way to the high school or the terraces, it's all in the city.
It's all in the city now?
Yeah.
I thought part of that was still was county.
I was just talking to Abraham. There might be a section or two, but for the most part, I think it's probably all city at this point. And then I just wanted to let you folks know that next week, or our next meeting in October, Mike Chambliss and myself will be at the National Business Aviation Association convention/conference. So Brett Miller will be sitting in this chair. I looked at the board. It's a fairly large agenda, so be prepared, and you can give him all the whatever you want. So, and that's it.
Okay. All right, so no training conferences? Number D?
Oh, yeah.
I actually did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's the
Bill
one
and
we've
I
been talking
walked
about,
it
yeah.
many a time,
Yeah.
so we're going to talk about that later.
So, Paul?
Mayor, council members, just want to introduce myself. I'm Paul DeSilva. I'm the IT director for the city.
Could you speak up a little bit, please? Thank you.
Is this okay? All right. Again, Paul DeSilva. I'm the IT director for the city. And I attended the 19th annual MESAC conference in Monterey. MESAC's an association of IT professionals and directors and managers for different municipalities within California. Been going to this every other year or so. This year the focus was on cybersecurity, and with the rash of ransomware that's been going around in different state cities. Texas has been hit with like 17 cities, several cities in California, including Union City just a couple weeks ago. Very enlightening to see what's all involved and how the cities are handling it. A lot of them are hit hard and they're down for weeks and back down to paper and pencil to do their city business. And so trying to be on top of all that to make sure that we're not hit also. And the county got hit last year also. But it was good to meet with everybody and kind of get their input and how things have been, how they've been handling things and how to get around not being on that list. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. It's nice to see you in the daylight.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Desiree Martinez. I'm the Code Enforcement Supervisor. Can you hear me? Last week I attended a code enforcement seminar in San Diego, and during that time they updated all the California current laws on cannabis, inspection warrants, sidewalk vendors, housing inspections, illegal soliciting on public and private property, illegal camping, and stress management. It was a great conference, and it was through the California associations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Desiree.
Greetings. I have a kind of a rundown of what our planners did in Santa Barbara, but I'll keep it concise. On September 15th to the 18th, our assistant planners, Amber Cameron and Eva Kelly, attended the American Planning Association conference entitled A Resilient Future in Santa Barbara, California. Some of the items that they had the opportunity to sit in on and learn, they attended an SP2 class where they met with representatives from the State Department of Housing and Community Development to discuss the planning grant program and how local jurisdictions can utilize funds. Attended a session regarding the 2019 CEQA update where there was a comprehensive overview was provided some of the amendments that took place in 2018. Thing with CEQA is it's constantly reformed every year, so it's important that our land use professionals attend these conferences. And finally, attended sessions regarding the 6th cycle housing element, which is by right housing regulations, strategies for updating our zoning code. Placemaking, art, public art, Councilmember Resendez, you might have some interest in that, public art, and historical preservation. So these are really good conferences to go to for our staff. So,
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, who's next?
Yeah, I had 2 employees in the last week of September go to a GSA conference. That's a government surplus conference to see how we can actually take advantage of that really great program. Most of it's free. And then last week we had 3 employees go to a personnel relations conference actually in Watsonville, and learned the newest stuff for 2019. And we'll be doing a legal update conference as well this week as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else before me? Billy?
Go ahead. You're
Bob?
good.
Billy? Anyone
No.
else?
You're last.
Nobody else?
No, Chief, did you have something you wanted to say or no?
Next council meeting, next.
Okay. So it's you now. Spotlight is on you.
Just Deputy City Clerk and I attended a Brown Act training in Monterey on September 20th. I kind of sent some stuff into your mailboxes because I found that even though you think you know this stuff inside and out, you're absolutely surprised by what you think you know and what's actually true. So I think I gave you guys a pop quiz and the handout. I'm going to send you guys the answers to that pop quiz. So if you want to go ahead and try and take that pop quiz that I put in your boxes, and you'll be surprised that you're wrong on some of this stuff. It's absolutely amazing. So I thought it was an excellent training, and it was good. It was good.
Okay, is that it? Or Bill, do you have something?
Yep.
All right, we can go ahead and move. Go
A
ahead.
short comment, just to say, I'm glad to see we're doing all this professional development. It's really, really important for a city of our size where we have limited staffing to keep up the amount of changes to the laws and regulations and the way things are done every year are just enormous now. They're just amazing. The people are just cranking them out at the assembly, at the state, at all the agencies such as the air quality agencies, the water quality agencies. They just crank them out as if everybody could just absorb them with no problem whatsoever. It's just enormous. The only way to keep up is to do professional development, but I want to make sure our professional development gets pushed down to the workers in the front line too, because the way they do their work also changes. So I thank you, and I am appreciative of the fact that you're doing this. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move to item E1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance that would repeal Municipal Code Chapter 16.64, our growth management program, and replace it in its entirety. I'm not sure how much the council wants to go through this particular document at this time. We've gone through it several times. I want to just make sure that everybody is up to date with the, when we had our last sort of study session on the growth management program, the vote was to set the growth management limit at 159 units, which is roughly about 1.5% growth rate. And then there was a caveat in there that talked about when or if the RENA numbers exceed that number, that the growth cap would be adjusted. So essentially, over the next 5-year period, the growth management would be 795 units. Again, if the RENA numbers come out and it's determined that we need to grow at a substantially higher rate, which my understanding is from some of the folks that attended the conferences that the RENA numbers in most markets are going to go up considerably, that would be adjusted. Again, no other major changes have taken place as far as the document is concerned with some of your last viewing of it. I will say that the implementation of it, so this tonight before you is to introduce. You will have the second reading will be at your next meeting. Also at your next meeting, you will have the implementation component of it, which is basically the point system, et cetera. So we'll have that adopted at the same time as the actual ordinance is adopted, and then again, 30 days later, it comes into effect. So if there's anything that you'd like to know specific, I can certainly try to answer that question. Abraham is here in the event that I don't know the answer, but essentially, staff is recommending that you introduce read by title and introduce this new ordinance that will replace chapter 1684, and the ordinance number is 1183.
Okay, I do have
Sure.
a couple of questions and
Sure.
comments. As you know, I'm not a fan of these numbers. I think the numbers should be lower. But taking that aside, the area it talks about up to 8 units, single family. It's not considered in the count. I thought before we talked about something like 2 or 4 single family before it becomes a development and those numbers start to count.
A project?
I see this as 8 now, so I think that number's increased. I know we wanted to have room for some of the local
The smaller
single-family home builders, custom homes. But I see that number is up at 8 now, so I'm questioning that.
Let me see. I hope, please bear with me. I apologize.
Do you need to know where it's at?
Yeah, do you have it real quick?
I can find it here. Yeah, it's on page 182. It is under section
Is it part of the exemption?
16.64.025 definitions. It says small residential project means a residential project consisting of no more than 8 single-family residential units or lots.
And the council would prefer to have that at a smaller
I remember
number?
we had that before. We talked about a smaller number.
Yeah, and by motion.
I would prefer. I don't know what the rest of the council. I'm just.
And
caught that.
a minor change like that, we can probably do with an emotion on its adoption, and we can make that modification before it's adopted. If you would like to, what were we talking about? 4 units or something?
4. I thought the number was 4 before.
We can certainly make that change, Mr.
And
Mayor.
there's one other area that
Sure.
caught my attention. That was 16.64.030J, where residential projects in process with residential applications have been deemed complete by the cycle, I think it was. It doesn't sound like they're completely approved and they're still going through the process. That would not fall into the requirement.
Abraham,
And
do
I
you
want
have
to
any
make
that are
sure
in
that those that haven't been completely approved do fall.
Do you want to give them an example of one that the city has deemed complete?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, Mr. Mayor. Right now, if there is an application that is in for a tentative map that's been deemed complete, they would be exempt from this growth management ordinance if it is approved or the way it reads now. If your intent is to basically require all applications, even those that are in process right now, then yeah, J would not do that. J would basically indicate that if the application is deemed complete prior to its adoption of this ordinance, then the applications that we have in process, which we do have about two in process right now, tentative map, then those applications would not go through this process, through the growth management program.
They would?
So if you approve it as is right now, they wouldn't. They would be exempt from this program.
Oh, they would be exempt.
Right.
Even though they're not complete.
Yeah, because they have been those that are, if they are completed prior to the adoption of it, then they would be exempt.
So
Yeah.
let me be very clear so that we're all talking. So deemed complete is a legal term, right? That the city has accepted that the application and all its materials is complete and submitted.
Correct.
And can be processed. Now, we have 2 maps that are like that?
2 maps that have been submitted and are in the process that could potentially be deemed complete prior to its enactment of this ordinance.
So that I'm clear, I'm not looking to change those that have all their approvals. I understand, I've made that very clear many a times. I'm not gonna get into that kind of a situation. But an application to me does not mean they should now be exempt from this
Right.
deal. So I wanna make sure those that aren't,
Entitled.
everything's not done, should be following these new rules, is
If-
what I'd like to see happen.
So if we have an application in that has not received entitlements,
There you
they
go.
should be.
Exactly.
Okay, so
Those
then-
that have already received their entitlements, I can understand that.
Okay.
It's a complete deal. Application, that's a different story to me. That shouldn't be moving through and avoiding the new requirements.
Very well.
That's the only two major things that I see. Well, the third is a number, but that's a different conversation.
So I have I have some questions and comments. We'll get a chance.
Hang on.
Go ahead.
I think Bill was gonna make a comment.
That's fine.
Bill, did you have a comment or something? No? Okay. Vice Mayor Richmond?
Thank you very much. So I want to go, first of all, I want to go backwards a couple of steps here. Number one is, I don't expect the RENA numbers for market rate housing to go high. I believe the RENA numbers for moderate, low, very low, super low, whatever those categories are,
Yeah.
affordable, are going to be much higher. None of those apply to this ordinance, am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I don't expect, I'll be very surprised if the market rate housing goes up at all, actually. I don't expect it to. The only reason I put that in there, and it turns out, just in retrospect, it probably was a good thing to put it in there, because in case it bumps up, I don't want to go on the wrong side. So before we move on to these specific items, when do we expect this might go to HCD?
Upon adoption of your second reading,
Okay.
we would absolutely send it back up to HCD for their review.
Okay. So here's a direct question. Has anybody changed that number from 4 to 8? Was that ever a change that anybody can remember doing?
And I apologize, I don't remember doing it, but if the mayor caught that.
Well, it was a conversation we had.
Oh, it
several
was a
years-
conversation,
several
okay.
years back, so I thought it was implemented.
I
but-
just want to make sure no one changed it. Personally, I have no objection, this is my personal view only, obviously we have not taken a vote or a consensus. I would have no objection to doing 4, okay? That's just my personal view at this time. I just wanted to make sure that no one changed it without authority. Okay, the second one is, let's make sure we're on the same sheet of music. Of the two you're talking about, are they deemed complete?
I don't believe they are deemed complete at this point.
Okay,
They are
so
not.
they're not deemed complete, so they
Correct.
would not qualify to be exempt?
At this point, they would not,
Okay.
right.
And how long is it gonna take us to adopt this, if we get straightened out tonight?
You would have your adoption on October
October
21st.
21st, so it would be November 21st, it would be in effect.
Roughly November 21st,
Okay.
it would be a law. Yeah.
Okay. So, but there is a possibility that the two, whoever they are, I don't know who they are, would be deemed complete in between.
Well, I mean, I think that, here's what I would say, is that if the council's direction, again, if you recall, the council has now the authority to approve entitlements, right, for tentative maps.
Right.
If you wanted them to go through the point criteria and they haven't been deemed complete, I'll talk it over with Jason and we
Okay.
can make sure that we report back to you on the meeting of the 21st. But your policy could be is that everybody who's not deemed complete is going to go through this
Right.
process.
That's-
Even during the adoption cycle, you could do that.
Well, that's what I would like it to be,
Yeah,
that's my personal.
I mean, I
deemed
just
complete.
leaned
Okay.
over, and I mean, I don't think we want to give an answer right now, but the intent would be is that if an application is not deemed
Okay.
complete, then they would go through the process.
Okay, so that would be my intention. I think that's what the mayor's intention is. If I don't want to state for you,
Mhm.
but I think that's what he's saying. I think we can agree on that because it was never my idea to let anybody slip under the wire, quote unquote. That's just my personal view. But if they are deemed complete and they get over that hump, I don't want to get in legal trouble by now trying to implement something retroactively because that will just put this into the lap of the lawyers, and we'll be sitting around arguing about it for another 5 years, okay? So, whatever suggestion you have to make those changes that would meet the criteria and get us going toward moving it along, let's do that as far as I'm concerned, and I'm willing to hear it, and that's my statement.
And I don't mean to interrupt anybody. I just want to respond to Councilman Richmond's concerns. If we left J exactly as written, we wouldn't have to go back, and Jason was also concerned about, is that a substantial enough change to have another first reading? I think if it's left alone, obviously we can go with it and get it adopted, and again have staff implement the policy moving forward. That if they don't,
And
if
which
it's not
paragraph do we have to change to change from
J.
8 to 4?
J.
Oh, from 8 to 4 is
Yeah, I still don't see it. So what
That's on,
It's up there.
where,
it's on,
what section?
it's on page
It's on the definition.
182,
I'm looking at 182.
and it's section 16.64.025,
02.
and small residential project means its definitions.
yeah. The reason why it's hard to see is that I don't have a number 8.
You have it,
just have
number
the-
8, so, yeah, it's
Sorry.
written out. That's correct way of doing it.
That's why I didn't recognize the 4 though.
Do you see it now?
I don't see it.
Oh.
I'll show you.
Let me see if I
I'm
can
on page
find it again.
181, 182.
Three paragraphs from the exemption section.
Go down.
Now you know why we need new software.
Okay.
Clerk.
I found it once, I can't
Well, I
find
mean,
it again.
8 is a tentative map, 4 and under is a parcel map, so I could go with that.
All right, Councilmember Spencer?
I like just keeping J the way it's written, but how does SB 330 go with this? Will we be in any trouble with that?
They'll let us know.
I can only give you my opinion. I'm not a lawyer. I have read it carefully. SB 330 applies to moderate and below. This applies to market rate.
Okay.
Those are 2 different categories, in my opinion. It has not been signed yet anyway. As of when I checked last, earlier tonight, it had not been signed, but even when it's signed, the way I read SB 330, and I've read it carefully, it says moderate, low, very low, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing in there about market rate, so
Okay.
it would not apply to this at all.
Councilmember Sendes?
Yeah, a couple things. I thought we had talked about including language that would allow schools to sit down and mitigate potential impacts. Did we or didn't we not discuss that to be included in this?
And we did talk about that, and I think one of that is we can probably put that actually in the implementation of the actual ordinance and sort of the rules, but I still would warn all the council members when we start talking about schools and the influence that a school district or schools has on the actual planning process. I just want to make sure we're all clear that, there's been a lot of suits about how that actually works, and I understand the council's concern and the city's concerns and the district's concern, and we can continue to work together on that. I just want to make sure that should be a clear line drawn that one doesn't overrule the other.
Just want to make sure that we're still working on it, doesn't fall off the map.
Nope.
Okay, the other thing is project rating scales. Do we have project rating scales in place right now?
We had a project rating scale. HCD had several concerns over the project rating scale. That you will see that at your next meeting. And just as a preview, I think I let you know before that all the items within the project rating scale that had a monetary value associated with them was viewed as a constraint against development, so all of those have been removed. So now it's really about mostly design and density type of questions. So
okay, I think I heard about that happening in Morgan Hills as well. Then my last question, it says here, if the director finds that the modifications to the project are not significant, what does that mean? Because somebody's not significant can be not significant and then very significant. So can we get, I don't know, some type of language or some, I know that with these things, they've got to be a little bit general, but I just want to make sure that that we still have some type of oversight over what's being developed and not developed.
Do you know where that, Councilman Resendez, do you know what section that was, and maybe I can
I
help?
didn't write.
Oh,
So
you didn't
I
write
think
it
the
down?
last
Okay,
thing I
sorry.
wrote was 16.64 070. So it's got to be under that while I was reading through the document. So it would be
No, it's not in that one, but, oh,
it says to approve the project eligibility for such permits, the city council shall find that. That's how it starts. So it looks like
C.
what page, Carol? Do you know?
It's on,
185?
Yes, 185, and would be under C right there, 1664080C. Did I get it right?
No. Page 185. I think that is what you're talking about.
I don't see.
It is actually D1.
D1 modifications to project.
On page 186, it says in the middle of the first paragraph, if the director finds that the modifications to the project are not significant, such findings shall be forwarded as a recommendation to the city council. The city council.
We get to decide anyway.
Yeah. You, again,
But what does
remember,
that
you folks
mean,
always
not
have
significant?
complete
Right.
control, and the staff does, at various stages or points in time, have done a substantial conformance. So, you know, during the tentative map process or the plan check process, if things change a little bit where it substantially conforms with what the council has approved, we can make we do make moderate sort of modifications, but that's just part of the kind of the engineering law part of things, because sometimes lot lines change based on various things during design. So you don't want to see everything coming back all the time. So I think that's kind of the point here. Again, I don't necessarily, the intent here is not to remove any authority away from council or have the direction or the authority given to the development services director. So I think you're probably okay overall, but understand your concern, absolutely.
Has to come to council anyway, right?
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Always.
They will all go to council now, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we get to judge whether his judgment or her judgment is correct.
Okay.
Right. And normally a significant modification would be like adding a new lot to the development. That at that point I would have to go back for review. But if it's like Bill said, arrangement of lot lines, maybe the street
Well,
width.
how about changing the use, cause I still, I didn't like what happened there. The Del Carlos front piece there, went from commercial to residential at an administrative level. So,
Yeah,
would
if-
that be?
Well,
If it's adding or subtracting units, that would be significant. That would be a significant.
Again, and remember that this is really just tentative maps. I mean, it's not necessarily site and architectural,
Right.
et cetera, et
That's when I
cetera.
use it. Yeah, just.
Well, it was a tentative map, but yeah.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And one thing I did want to, I appreciate it. Again, I'm not crazy about this because of the numbers, but it sure is a lot better than the 244, and we can fix a few things. I do want to make sure some of the things I keep hearing out there is SB 330 and what we have to, I want to let the public know. I've read through it myself too. San Benito County is actually exempt from that because more than 50% of the land in our county is ag, as well as here in the city, anything that's prime ag is actually exempt from it too. So just want the public to know. They made it very clear in there, prime ag land is something they don't want built on. This bill was actually designed for cities like Berkeley, different cities where there's a need for more housing and people do not want multi-family or different types of housing going on. That's what this bill was written about. It wasn't written to force our community into compliance here. So I just want everybody to know, when that number is thrown around, we have to because of this, and no. Let's get back to working, working good on our planning our future in our community. So, okay. At this time, we're gonna go ahead and
Don't we have to make those changes and read?
No, not yet, because we got a public hearing first.
Oh, thank
Okay,
you.
We're gonna go to public hearing.
Thank you.
Public
Got it.
hearing is open. Do we have any speakers?
I have no speakers, Mr. Mayor.
This time, we're gonna close public hearing. Okay, you can go ahead and state your comments?
Well, I just want to make the appropriate changes.
Okay.
So I'd like to make the minor change to change paragraph 16.64.025, if I have that correct, from of a small development from the number 8 to the number 4, and that's a minor correction, if I have that correct.
I'm
And,
sorry, Marty, could you repeat that? 16.04?
16.64.025, is that? do I have that correct?
16.64.025.
Yep. And change the definition of a small development from 8 units to 4 units. And that is a minor correction. And then other than that, I would like to read the ordinance City of Hollister, repeal and replace Hollister Municipal Code, Chapter 16.64 regarding growth management program and future development, and read by title only, waive full reading, and introduce the ordinance and repeal and replace Hollister Municipal Code, Chapter 16.64 growth management program.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to move to item F1.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Item F1 is a supplemental appropriation of $460,000 from the Stormwater Fund 662, and authorization to amend the Wallace Group's existing contract to help us deal with the tomato spill and the repercussions of, in order to let them proceed with the required design, construction plans, engineering support, etc., for the modifications to the industrial wastewater treatment plant and the apricot outfall that we agreed to at the last council meeting.
Okay, is there any questions on this item? The plan, I do have a question. The plan was to divert into the ponds,
That's correct.
no matter what was happening with the cannery. Is there urgency anymore that we don't know what is going to go on with the cannery now that they've had their issues?
Well, the
Is there an urgency to divert this still?
So you got 2 clocks running.
Mm-hmm.
A couple years ago, you told the water board that within 10 years, you were going to filter all the rainwater going into the San Benito River.
Mm-hmm.
That's your long-term clock. Your short-term clock is, at the last council meeting, you signed a 2-year agreement with the water board to have the apricot outfall done. Okay. This work removes the need to install a stormwater filter at apricot. So either way, whether the cannery's there or not, you're going to be paying to filter that water. By turning the pipe and running it into the ponds, you no longer have to do that.
Okay. Just want to make sure. All right, any other questions? Do we have any speaker cards? Okay, is there a motion?
I move that we adopt resolution number 2019-224, appropriating $460,000 from Fund 662 and authorize a contract amendment with the Wallace Group to provide plans, construction, supervision, and administrative support to complete the required modifications to the apricot outfall and the IWTP.
There's a
Industrial
motion.
Wastewater Treatment Plant.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
We'll move to item F2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In 2017, we did a master plan update for the Hollister urban area plan, and there was a need that was identified for a high quality water supply and reliability for sort of our north end of town area. In 2018, the district, and when I say the district, I mean the San Benito County Water District, completed an evaluation of the water supply and storage alternatives identified in that master plan. And based on that, a couple of recommendations came out of it. And one of them was to create what we're calling basically the North County Groundwater plan. And what you have in front of you this evening is an MOU that is generally how we conduct business with the district and with Sunny Slope County Water District to improve water supply, et cetera. So the first phase of this program is to basically identify how to increase 1,000 acre feet of year of new high quality water in the northern part of the city. This does a few things. It helps with our redundancy efforts up on the northern part of the city, and it quite possibly could have us avoid putting in another additional 16-inch a water main that would travel north. If the water is coming down from the south, there would be possibly a need to, there wouldn't be a need for that particular line. So there's going to be some cost savings there. The MOU for the first phase of some of the studies that we're talking about doing will cost about $200,000, and I think that this is a huge next step as far as making sure that we have an adequate water supply, not only for the northern part of the city but for the entire area, because it will also help in irrigation and other M&I water. I believe that council members Spencer and Lenore had a meeting with the district to kind of get an update if they have anything that they'd like to add. Also, Jeff Catania is here for the technical questions because this is in his bailiwick. So if there's any questions for you or for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Otherwise, staff is recommending that you adopt the resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an MOU with the San Bernardino County Water District and with Sunny Slope County Water District. The district actually already approved the MOU the other night, or when did they approve it? Last week. And then the Sunny Slope County Water District, I think, is tomorrow night?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, okay.
Any questions?
Yeah. What's it going to cost?
200 for the first part.
The feasibility level study is going to be about $344,000. $44,000 is planned to come from the firm that you do the work with, Kimley Horn, and that will be the work that they're going to do to look at integrating the new well into your system. The other $300,000 will be work that the district does, and that's going to be looking at finding a new well or an area for a new well that has high quality water. We've identified an area that's roughly about a 2-mile radius around the airport area right now that typically, when we look at wells out there, have higher quality water than wells that are further south. The geology if you further you go up north towards Pacheco Creek, the better the water quality gets up there, because there's a different geology up there. It's more volcanic in nature as opposed to the marine sediments from South County. So we typically find better water up there. The plan is that we would do a facilities plan to look at the different facilities that would be needed in there to be able to do that. There's basically two options. Look at a well with a pipeline that would deliver water to the airport. If we can't find suitable water, the other option is to drill a well that's a little bit closer to the airport but gets it away from the major water quality issues that are around the airport, and then do a plan that includes some softening that would increase the water quality coming into the airport. What Bill said, one of the advantages of doing this is that the disadvantage that you've got now is you've got water only going one direction out to the airport, and it's a dead end. This would bring water from both directions, so that you've got water coming from two different areas, two different directions, so you've got some redundancy there. In addition to that, the majority of the time that this would be operating, you'd be actually pushing water from the airport back through the existing 14-inch line that's out there and into the city, so it's going to add some additional water supply. It's important to us, and that's why we've been looking at it, is because this is water supply that would be not subject to the issues that happen in the Delta. So you've got the water quality problems that happen in the Delta, and you could have some water quality problems. But you've also got the biggest problem you got is the issues about pumping in the Delta and what's going to happen in there, and then just the droughts that we see, where our water supply that's imported gets reduced. This is 100% reliable because it's in the county and we control it. And what we're going to be looking at, particularly with if the new Pacheco project goes forward, and we're working real hard to do that, the way that that project is going to work, they're going to actually be releasing about 8 to 10,000 acre feet of water into Pacheco Creek to help the steelhead runs. But that water is also going to benefit the North County area and actually create more water up there that's available to be pumped out and put into use in the southern portions. We're anticipating that there's probably about 4 to maybe 6,000 acre feet of water that would have to be removed just to keep the high groundwater conditions from being a problem out in Lover's Lane. So.
I should also add one key component of this whole thing is that I'm not sure if the entire council is aware, but we have 2 wells up there, but they're both down. So well number 1 and well number 3 have been inoperable for several years, and that's part of the reason why all the flow is going that direction. So that's been one of our fundamental problems with that particular situation.
Will these wells be essentially the same aquifer we're operating under now, or is that a different aquifer?
Yes.
The same basin?
Same
Yeah,
basin?
same basin.
Okay, that's right.
Same with the same aquifer, yes, but there's different zones within the aquifer.
Yes, I remember the cross section.
Yeah.
So you would be in a different zone?
We would seek to find one that is suitable for the water quality.
I see.
And generally, Marty, the further north, like I said, the further north you go, the better the water quality gets.
Why are the 2 wells down? Were they not productive, or did they collapse, or?
Yeah, well, one well ended up being really high in, I think, nitrates, and the second well number 3, is one that actually the pump was broken, casing, and it lodged
casing
down,
collapsed.
down inside, and it
So that
can't
one
be
has a
repaired.
mechanical problem?
Yes, but it can't be
I
fixed.
understand, but it
yeah.
wasn't a water quality issue on that one?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But I will say, I believe that there was some chromium-6 issues potentially with well 3.
And this is the question I was going to be asking.
Yeah.
Part of this whole project we just completed, the idea was to use more surface water.
Correct.
Because our groundwater had higher levels of chromium-6 and different things that we needed to mix. Now, if we're pulling water from the northern part, how's that water testing as far as chromium-6?
So generally, we don't see high levels of hexavalent chrome up in the north area. What we would do, we would drill some pilot wells, where you drill a small diameter well, you pull water quality samples out of there. If they look like they're good, then you would do a final completed well, a bigger well. If you don't find good water in that one, you would move on to the next one, and hopefully you don't have a lot of those that you have to do. So you try to target areas that you've looked for wells in the area around there where you can find the water quality that you can do, and then you target those areas.
So what were the parts that we were finding here?
On the hexavalent chrome, I think you were in excess of 15 or 16 is what the levels were.
Okay, and we need to be under 10.
And you need to be under 10.
We need to be under 10. So if you're finding it at 10, 12, are we moving forward on this?
No.
That ends this project?
No, doesn't end the project. What it does is it means we'll find a different spot to drill a well.
Okay. So the next question I have for you is, as you pointed out, the water level in that area is high. Your plan is to start trying to bring that down. But I remember a conversation, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had pointed out that during the drought years, part of what saved us was because of that level of water we were able to draw down on.
But this would actually create a problem, not this project, but the Pacheco project. Under the existing conditions, there are still some moderately high groundwater conditions out in the Lover's Lane area. The way that the geology works out there is that what they call as a forebay is around Orchard Road, and the water comes through the Pacheco Creek system, and it percolates down into the soils, the sands and gravels in Pacheco Creek until you get to about where 156 crosses Pacheco Creek, and then there's a clay layer that's in there, and then the water goes underneath that clay layer, but it's still tilted like this, so the water level is sitting up here, and you've got this hydraulic pressure that's sitting up there with this water, and it's all continuously moving west toward the Calaveras Fault. When it hits the Calaveras Fault, it stops. It creates, there's a barrier there, and that fault has actually created a barrier that impedes the water from moving from east to west. So it backs up there, and so what ends up happening if you continually put more water down Pacheco Creek, you've always got this high head that's sitting up here and creating this pressure in the Lover's Lane area, because that's right about where the Calaveras Fault crossing is.
Right, so part of this issue is because of the proposed dam.
Not the issue,
So
no.
more water is going to be flowing down the creek.
No, what it's not creating an issue, it's creating an opportunity to be able to capture and recover more water.
Right, and I understand. I'm just, maybe not the right word there. I'm just trying to understand how this is all functioning here so I get
Yeah.
a better grasp of, we had long conversations about water for several years as we were working on this other project. So I understand the point. I'm just trying to figure out the levels of water quality and the mix again, because I don't want to be back in a situation where now we need to mix again over here to make it work. Otherwise, we're too high on these levels, nitrates or chrome 6 and so on. So I'm
Right.
trying to understand exactly what that looks like, but you don't know the answer yet, is what you're telling me.
I don't know
Until
the
you
exact answer, no, because we haven't drilled the wells, and so you don't know exactly what's going to be there. But we certainly wouldn't drill a well and provide water to the city that would be marginal, and it could potentially have problems later. A lot of times what happens is even if you did find those issues with and we did look at this with the city's wells, with like a hexavalent chrome, using it as an example, there may be specific layers or portions of the aquifer that are producing that hexavalent chrome or whatever the constituent is that's a problem. And what you do is when you drill down and you're doing those studies, you pack those areas off and you take specific samples from those different locations if you do find that you have something in there. And if you can identify that it's coming from a specific location or depth in the aquifer, you drill, when you complete your well, you don't put screens in those areas and you seal that portion of it off, so you're not drawing water out of that particular portion, and then you can avoid those things. It's done a lot of times with any kind of problem that you have. If you have high nitrates usually come from the surface, so the deeper you go, the less nitrate problem you have. But if you've got like arsenic issues or something like that, and you find that there's a specific portion in there, you can pack those areas off and not pull your water from the areas that have the problems.
Okay.
My final question is the famous salt bugaboo. Are we looking at, do you think we're looking at a salt problem that'll wind up with needing another desalt plant or something like that in the area? I mean, that's pretty
You mean
stiff
specifically
investment.
on these wells?
Yeah. What's your opinion as we sit now? Obviously, you will test the water and you will see what it is. But what do you think? You think this is?
I'm fairly confident that there's water quality up in that area that is suitable.
Okay.
Even if we did find some, if it was still in had the total dissolved solids or salts in it that was a little bit high, that's still pretty easily treatable. You can use a pellet softening plant. That's not really, they aren't real expensive, and they're pretty easily operated. San Juan Bautista was going to put one in, but they ran into problems.
I remember.
It's
you know why I'm laughing, right?
It's still sitting out there.
It's all easily treatable if you have enough money.
Well, yeah, and that wasn't.
You have to look at it that way.
That wasn't the problem that with the San Juan Bautista one wasn't the fact that the actual technology was expensive, and it was the fact that they got up to a certain point and it didn't matter. It could have been $1 to treat it, and they wouldn't have had enough money to do it.
I remember it. Thank you.
I have a question.
Councilmember Lenore.
And when you look at the budget, and I understand that, if it's a collaboration of 3 entities, why is it just Sunny Slope County Water and the City of Hollister splitting the cost for the feasibility study?
The district has already put in 200,000.
Okay,
Yeah, we put in 200,000 up to this point.
okay.
And so.
I did read that in there, all
yeah.
right. Yeah, I remember now, you already spent the 200,000. I read that.
You asked me that question earlier, too.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
I just thought to see if you're gonna give you the
Jeff,
same answer.
you always have
remember
all the
now.
answers,
I
Jeff, I
remember
gotta
that.
say.
I'm having concerns still.
Okay.
You know, I guess because we just went through this exercise of spending
Yeah.
Yep.
$10 million each, or turned out to be more. I think it was 13, 14 on our side.
More
By
than
the
that.
time
Well,
we
the
paid
the
for-
water district put in about 14 million, and yours was about 12 or 13.
I think it was
And the s- and
all
so-
the other
so-
things we did to
Yeah.
kind of help with the other problems we had. I'm looking at this, not that I don't agree in the future it's
Mhm.
not going to be needed, but when is that future need? Because I'm still looking at a debt that we have and wondering why we'd want to put in more money into something and then have to come back and tell our ratepayers, hey, by the way, the cost of your water is going up again. We've been trying to go the other way here for a while, and we're going to come back again. Eventually, it's going to be, well, we're going to need more money to make this thing happen.
Well, here's what I would say to that sort of is that I believe that this investment here is absolutely necessary. Now, ultimately, this is still to try to figure out how we're going to do it. But the most important thing is that we can't increase our industrial parks and create the business and the economic part of the things in the North County if we don't have a good water supply and source. So that's probably first and foremost that should be on your mind, is making sure that that area up there that we've designated for our business area, that it has water.
And I would agree with you, except for the problem we're having right now. We're not even using enough water, so we're having this constant issue every time you do
Well-
the check on this. So I understand where
Okay.
you're coming from.
Okay.
But I want to know what that plan is also. Is that a 5-year, 10-year? What's happening with industry that's going to need this thing to make this work over here? So, and again, that's why I said I don't disagree with the concept. I'm looking at this from a time perspective, financially.
Well, you can, so we can, what we can do, Mr. Mayor, is we can do the feasibility study, we can do the planning work that we do, but it doesn't mean you have to pull the trigger on actually doing the installation of the project. You can get everything in place and ready to go. You do have one burning issue, though, and you've got a fire flow problem up at the airport. And so you need to address that. And in order to, so you don't have to drill the well and do all of that. You can solve the fire flow problem up at the airport, but that's going to cost you $3 million, and it's a single-purpose project. Well, this is a multi-purpose project that's going to provide benefit in the future, including the water supply, including the other issues that we've got to address. So, I mean, and you would do that on your own. There wouldn't be any partners in that.
Yeah, so, and again, I understand all this. I understand what you're asking for here.
Yeah.
What I'm asking for, and I know you don't know that number yet. What are we talking about, dollars?
Oh, well, the dollars we've got the dollars.
You
We've
do
got an
know-
estimate of the dollars, and
Okay.
that's going to run someplace between about $7 million to about $13 million, depending upon what the options. And that's at the level that we are now in the planning and the design work.
Okay, so that's the 3 agencies sharing that cost.
It would be
2.5.
We don't know exactly how it's going to be split yet,
Okay.
because when you haven't figured that out until we get to looking at what the project is and what all the benefits and who's going to receive all the benefits from it.
Appreciate it. All right, well, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do we have any speaker cards? All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
And I would say, going back to this, as we did with our other meetings, we had some long meetings here to discuss what was happening, and they were very helpful for us and the public to really understand what the goal was. And I think, remember at that one point where we realized that with the Chrome 6, that if we don't address it now, we're going to pay for it dearly in the future. And because of our meetings, we were able to address it. So that's why I'm asking you so many questions. It's important.
Go ahead.
You can come back up.
Well, and the
Sorry.
governance committee is still going to be part
Right.
of the overall
Yeah.
But these are the projects that we all need to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and I understand your sensitivity to the rates, because we're all sensitive to raising the rates. But there's another way to look at this too, and you know, you're collecting impact fees for new developments, and all of this stuff, all the things that we're doing here and all the things that we've done benefits the new developments and the growth that you're looking at and you're planning for now. So there's a way that you can capture and help pay for at least a portion of it through impact fees that you're already collecting for on the water side. So,
And if you recall, when we did our adjustments, part of the discussions were given to our consultants, and some of this was already added into. So it's already been kind of implemented. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's no speaker cards. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept resolution number 2019-225, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Hollister authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding for North County groundwater with San Benito County Water District and Sunny Slope County Water District.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Move to
Thank you
item
again, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
F3.
Always nice to see you, Jeff. Take care.
He always does a good job.
He does. I'll just give it to him.
Hello, Mayor and Council. HR has brought this item to the council. We're requesting that you approve a assistant planner position. We went through, tried to find a senior planner. We couldn't find anybody, extended the recruitment, and still we went through it, but the candidates that we found were just weren't of the quality that we already had in staff. So we wanted to at least bring in another assistant planner so we can start training within and help with that workload. They've got plenty of things to do, like the general plan, and we feel this is the best way. As you heard from training, they've already gone the assistant planners that we have now have gone through training, and we feel this is the best way to get the workload done. And department head is here if you need him.
Is there any questions?
I do have a
comments?
question.
Councilmember Lenore?
If I remember correctly, the stepping as an assistant, associate, senior?
Yeah,
Do we
that's.
have any associate planners on board right now?
I think well, I'll just say there's possible candidates
For associate?
for associate. Yeah.
But still okay, so you have assistant planners right now.
Yeah, we have two
And no
assistant planners,
associates.
no associates.
But you'll still have that associate, and you're gonna retain the senior classification within the department?
I'd like to. You know, one of the problems is that many people that would be a senior planner at this level would have gathered a lot of experience during the Great Recession. A lot of people lost jobs, so that market for the senior planner is very, very small. Okay. So, you know, we're hoping that you know, it's always good to grow from within, but to keep that senior planner option, you know, another year or so.
I don't have a problem with that. I was just clarifying if you had any associate planners on staff. It's always good to have stepping stones. I've always been a believer in that for staff to develop themselves.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have any speaker cards? Is there a motion?
I move we adopt resolution number 2019-226, authorizing a request to hire an assistant planner in place of a senior planner within the Development Services Department.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very
motion
much.
Carries.
Good luck.
Thank you. We're going to go to item G1, reports from city council members regarding their committees. Councilmember Lenore.
Okay, I did have a meeting recently, a few days back, with AAA Agency on Area Aging. They continue to work on the age-friendly communities. They're going to have a meeting over here in San Benito County soon on that subject. I did bring back some booklets for Brian to pass to his planning staff regarding the three of the booklets that I thought would fit nicely in the discussion for a general plan amendment. We're going to try to incorporate some of these age-friendly standards into the general plan. So I want to pass that along to Brian, if that's okay with you guys. The governor has ordered that we adopt an master planning on aging by October next year. So they're working diligent on that. And that's all I have. I have AMBAG this week.
Okay,
So that's what
Councilmember
I think
Spencer?
that's all I got, yeah.
I've had no meetings whatsoever, no committee meetings, no ad hoc meetings.
Vice Mayor Richmond?
Councilmember Lenore and I did another ad hoc on the tax sharing agreement. We continue to work on a draft. You'll be happy to know that the draft does not include us collecting any money on behalf of the county. I thought that would make everybody happy at least. So I hope to get it to some legal services within the next week or two, and they can start tearing it apart as they want to do, and maybe we'll get you something. I was hoping for the 21st, but I don't think we're going to make it, to be very honest with you. But I do think we'll make it before the old one expires. I think it has a lot of better options in it, including the option to unilaterally back out. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Resendez?
We had intergovernmental this month rescheduled. I think it was rescheduled for next month. We had some people that couldn't attend because of the fair. I wanted to speak to the public health department, the concerns that they brought up about banning vaping. So I think tomorrow we're going to meet with the ad hoc committee, Councilwoman Spencer and myself. And then Wednesday we're having a town hall. We're inviting all the public and all of the other
Excuse me, Roland, is it Wednesday or Thursday?
Okay, I'm getting my traffic calming in my.
Thursday the 10th.
And
upstairs at
all right,
Vets.
Thursday, upstairs at Vets, we're having another meeting. So I guess I just wanted to talk about it because I don't necessarily agree with everything that was said about that. I do think that Councilmember Lenore and Spencer did work pretty diligently. I don't think they would have been necessarily pleased with that outcome. I have to say that take some of the responsibility for it taking this long because I didn't necessarily agree with that outcome. And I have my own personal interests, my own personal agenda, or what do you want to call it? Not even agenda, I guess. What's a good word for it? My own personal beliefs. But we have a obligation to represent the constituents that put us into office, and we need to do our due diligence by meeting with all the parties and be as transparent and as progressive as possible in doing that before bringing back an ordinance or a policy, and it does take time, unfortunately. So I wish they were here to hear that, and if you're listening, I just want to explain that to you. Thank you.
Okay. I had a meeting with the ad hoc committee for the sports park. We met with the high school in the county to discuss the future regional park south of the high school and how we could work together so the city has a portion of the land. But most importantly, we had the conversation of the issues currently happening with the River Parkway at San Benito, the traffic issues. So we actually walked out there during peak traffic hours so we can show some of the other members the problems. And
What time?
it was about between 5 and 6, and there was a lineup of cars backed up.
Be there
Oh.
at 7:15 in the morning.
Oh, I go by there quite a bit in the morning. So, but I showed them the issues, and I think everyone agrees now that it's a priority, and everyone understands that something has to be done there before we can move forward. Because with closing the street and moving forward with any other project there, because it is a major issue, as you know, as we all know, driving through there. So, but it was good to hear that everyone did agree that this has to be solved, and the county is working for their traffic study. I believe, Bill, did they say that was going to be done pretty soon?
I'm sorry, but it should have been done last week. I'll
Okay.
check with Ray and see if
Okay.
it's done.
So once we have that, we'll give you the update on what it's saying. But basically, some sort of intersection needs to happen there. It cannot continue the way it is. And that's all I have for my reports. We'll move on to G2, informational reports from City Council.
Okay.
Councilmember Lenore?
I kind of asked a few times now, and I always open my agenda thinking, it's gonna be on there. We still haven't had the discussion of RVs in the parked in the public right of way. I'm serious. It's growing. They're everywhere now. And not just in the driveways, they're in the public right of way. I want that discussion. I'm really kind of disappointed I have had to ask so many times. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Spencer?
Oh, I forgot. Going back to some of the things that were talked about, and you talking about the bypass, River Park, whatever they call it, we do have a problem there. We have a problem on Nash Road too, just before, west of the H gate. The kids, like Mr. Ferrera and Mrs. Ferrera mentioned, kids are all over, they're walking all over, and it's a safety issue. I'm hoping that we have a traffic study on Nash, and that should be coming up pretty soon too.
Is it one that we conducted, or is it the one that the school,
No, the
something
one-
that we did?
Well, the school, yeah, we kind of went in half with the school. Cost sharing. Brian left.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can find out.
I'll find out for you. I
Okay,
apologize.
yeah, find out for that, because I thought that was supposed to be done last week, I think, along with the counties.
Okay.
Okay, I'd appreciate that, Bill.
No problem.
Thank you. And that's all I got.
Okay.
Just so I'm clear, that would be like on Nash and the river, whatever we call it.
From West Street
West Street?
to the bypass, that area right there.
Oh, okay.
Because of the kids crossing, the kids coming out of the parking lot speeding, just the chaos that's in that
Section? Okay.
section.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go back.
We're digressing.
I would like a report on the status of the RV parking.
Yeah, well,
RV
Dave and I we'll talk about that tomorrow when we're at staff meeting on
But I
the
mean,
status
the
of
whole
that.
thing.
Yeah, the whole
It's
thing.
been a while now. What's taking so long? Thank
Okay,
you.
Vice Mayor Richmond?
Thank you. I had a meeting with a couple of folks from the San Benito County Public Art Council, I think is their, concerning public art. They wanted to talk about the possibility of us putting in a public art requirement for city, buildings and so on and so forth. I didn't know much about how that's done, so I did a lot of reading, and there's an awful lot of cities that do it by a percentage of the cost of the project. I think it's worth talking about. Obviously there's a lot of things to be done about it, to know about it before we make a decision or anything. I think it's worth putting on the agenda sometime when we have a chance.
I'm sorry, and what do we?
Whether or not we want to adopt a policy concerning funding of public art when we have a public building, or even a private development, whether depending on if there's open space where the public's going to be and so on and so forth. A lot of places apparently do some percentage of the cost. It's all over the place. The ones I read, they vary enormously. I think the best thing to do is get somebody who knows something about it and put them in touch with the San Benito Arts Council or other appropriate groups and see what we want, if we want to do anything about it. It's a council decision. It's not my decision. I think it's worth looking into. The other informational, just a question from the chief. Chief, do we give tickets for jaywalking? I'm just curious.
I got one once.
We have, yeah.
We do,
A lot.
okay. We might look at how we enforcing jaywalking. I believe, I see the same problem that came up, so it's an informational report that, I see the same problem that was mentioned here by several people about, especially the high school age kids. They just walk wherever they want. They don't pay any attention to the crosswalk, don't pay any attention to the traffic. And I think we've probably spent 17 years of their lives, or how old they are, telling them that the pedestrians have the right of way, don't worry about it. And so they just cross wherever they want. And I think if you have a driver who's not paying attention, we're gonna have a disaster one of these days. So it's unfortunate. I did a report as far as ex parte communications. I did attend the Chamber of Commerce Business Council meeting on a Thursday morning to see what was up. I hadn't been there in many, many months. I'm not a member. They invited me down. And I think it's interesting, some of the things that are going on, and that's where the discussion took place about speed limits downtown and what we can do to improve the downtown area. They had a lot of people there, a lot of small business people, very interested in doing improvements and getting more business going downtown. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Resendez.
Yes. I got a few things to report, so bear with me. On 9/28, I think it was Saturday, I attended at Calaveras Elementary a rock painting party. They are actually revitalizing their garden. They're in the process of revitalizing their garden, and they kicked it off with painting rocks. So I'm really excited about that. Because I think for years that garden it's had its ups and downs, and at one time it was thriving and now it's not. So I'm happy to see some interest, and I think that's going to be so beneficial to our kids and to our community there. That same day I attended Una Noche de Música. It is an event that I try to go to every year supporting the Hollister Dual Language Academy, and they always have the best music. You guys gotta go. It is so fun. And I love going, and I danced the whole night, and I have a really great time with my friends and family, so you guys should check it out. Apparently this Wednesday, not Thursday, Wednesday is going to be the traffic calming meeting over at Vets Hall. I think it's upstairs. I think it's 6 o'clock. But so if you don't know, we've been meeting with the community over there off Central to see how we can try to calm the traffic there. It's been a bit of a problem. The Kimley Horn is doing 3 meetings for us. The first one is just pretty much the presentation they gave tonight. I wrote a little note to him and I let him know they do inform of the unintended consequences of the traffic calming as well at the meeting. The second meeting, which I'm looking forward, after they get all the input, like what is the neighborhood like, what do they want, that's taking place tomorrow. They're going to present the options of what other people had chosen. And then I think the third is going to be like the final design that we all agree upon, and then that will come back to the council. So I don't mean to bore you, but I'm really excited about that process. And I think we should be doing that consistently throughout all the other areas that are identified. I talked about Buena Vista update. I agree with Mrs. Ferrer about Suter and D Street and Nash, their problem areas. I think we could, if we can, please investigate how we can help to solve that problem. And I think we talked about it in the beginning of my term, but maybe we should revisit that soon. Next week, I think, myself, the mayor, and Councilwoman Spencer are going to go to the League of United Cities conference. And then last, just because Vice Mayor brought it up, and I've been looking as well, I'm pretty crazy passionate about public art. And I used to be on the board of the San Benito Arts Council. I would love to sit down and to be either like a liaison or start an ad hoc committee. I can tell you all about what they're talking about. It's just, but I don't want to get into that right now. It's probably not the right time. But if we can put that on the agenda, or if we can find a way where I can get more involved in that, I have a lot of experience and expertise for that, and I've talked to them in length about these types of things. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, for me, I'd like what's the update as far as the affordable housing requirements? We start to discuss the percentages. Where are we at with that?
Yeah, so Jamila will be providing you with a report on October 21st. I apologize, it was supposed to be tonight, and it didn't get on the agenda, and that's completely my fault, but we have it scheduled for the 21st.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we're staying on track with that. I have a few things I want to talk about I thought were just great, but first I want to, again, congratulate Oseki on their 40 years. Great new plant that they built there. They showed me how they polish the rice and how that brings a different quality for the sake. And again, it tastes very good. But a couple of great things that happened in our community over the last couple of weeks. One, you all know Johnny Sanchez was on The Voice, and we watched him, we cheered him on. Unfortunately, they didn't pick him. I don't know why. He is so talented, and we are so proud of him. And I've had him at the vault years ago play over and over again. I always said this guy has the talent, and he's going to hit it big eventually.
He will.
Absolutely. So very proud of him. But another great thing happened yesterday. I went with my family to go see our San Benito High School Robotics Club compete in West Side, or whatever it is, Silicon Valley High School, heart of Silicon Valley. Now, this club is only 2 years old, and the clubs there are crazy big. They have members, like 20, 30 members. They've been around for 20 plus years building these robots. And long story short, our team ended up in first place. I couldn't believe it. It was just so great. And it was so exciting. We were jumping up and down in the stands, and there was
Way to represent.
what a day to be there and watching it all happen. And it was watching all these talented kids, not kids, young, brilliant people pull this off. And everybody was stunned. Everybody's just so excited for them. And they work as a team with 2 other schools, and it was Mountain View and Los Gatos that worked with them in their alliance. They won. But even more impressive, they won an award, a judge's award, for helping another school, which is Greenfield, establish their program.
Cool.
And it was great to hear the story about how Greenfield almost got disqualified because they had some components go down. They needed to have it working in 2 more days, and they didn't feel they could do it. And our team went over there, helped them put it together, brought them some components, and they got their robot working. Now, Greenfield won the award for Rookie of the Year at the event, and it was just, they were hanging out together, working together, and I just could not be more proud of our community, our students. So I wanted to congratulate them. And maybe we could do a day in their honor and a day in the honor of Johnny Sanchez too, because they deserve it. And if there's anybody that wants to help the team, mentors, sponsors, volunteers, please contact them. They need all of the above. Those things are expensive, and they take a lot of time. So congratulations to them all. That's all I have. City manager,
Nothing to report?
city attorney,
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
city clerk.
What community events? The San Benito Chamber of Commerce is working with our recreation department on needing the trick or treat streets. Treat street, yeah. And they need candy donated, so if anyone is able to drop off candy at the Chamber of Commerce, they'll be passing that out to the businesses to hand out. Quarterly breakfast for the Hollister Downtown Association is going to be Wednesday, October 23rd at Payne's Restaurant.
What was that again?
Quarterly breakfast is
Okay.
going to be at Payne's Restaurant for the HDA, 7:30 to 9 on Wednesday, October 23rd. And that's my 2 announcements for the community.
Mr. Mayor, if I may
missed Chief.
digress. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I missed Chief, so you can wait. And Chief, I wanted to say happy birthday to you again.
Oh, thank you very much.
Today? And you
It was-
haven't done
I have
it?
one
Couple days
announcement.
ago.
Only have one. Last Friday, we promoted one of our employees to sergeant.
Yes.
I want to congratulate Bo Leland. He's our newest sergeant. He is just a great employee, and we're excited about his future. Really are.
Good, good to hear. Okay, sir.
Sorry, I'll be real quick. I wanted to tell the community
Wanted to
and the
brag?
council. And brag, yeah. That the government finance officers has awarded us the award for our comprehensive annual financial report. And I believe this is I have to go count the awards again, but our 10th in a row. So I just wanted to tell you.
Congratulations.
that
Wow.
Our financial statements are well in order. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you,
You
sir.
do a good job for us, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move to item G4.
Okay, so this is, the mayor requested that we have this on the agenda for discussion. Real quickly, I will just say that I was having a hard time figuring out how to put it on there, and I got some help. So the Hollister Municipal Code basically says that the city council and its members shall deal with the administrative services of the city only through the city manager, except for those purposes of inquiry, and neither the city council nor any member thereof shall give orders to any subordinates of the city manager. The city manager shall take his or her orders and instructions from the city council only when in a duly held meeting of the city council, and no individual city council member shall give any orders or instructions to the city manager. I think that is good enough to at least start the conversation. I believe it would, the mayor would like to have his opportunity to come to what we call as our department head meetings. If this is a desire of the city council to make any amendments to the zoning code to allow that to occur, the direction would be to have, or direct staff to have either myself or the city attorney prepare an amendment to that particular section of the ordinance, or something of that nature. So I will leave it up to the mayor to take over the discussion at this point.
I just felt it was important. I think all of us have issues we want dealt with in the city, but I think there's been this pull back and forth, and some staff members that don't feel it's appropriate for council members to tell them what to do, which is correct. We go through city manager, and they've always worked well as far as working with us. Obviously, if there's something going on in your district, you need some help, send an email or a text to city manager and staff person so they can move on it. But I'm talking about larger items that are appearing onto the agendas without conversations with the rest of the council. I think it's important that we focus, as we heard from some of the applicants, focus our direction. And the only way we're gonna do that is by having that one lead, which is our city manager at this point, to help us get there. And if you want things onto the agenda, the meetings are the time to put them onto the agenda. Ask to have them on there so it's all clear to all of us, so nobody feels that there's something going on behind the scenes anymore. It's clear, it's out front, the public knows, we all know, and I think it's a fair process. I've said in the past, I think it's important that I do attend staff meetings. You know, so often I'm asked by residents, what's going on with this or that, and I don't have an answer. And it just seems kind of frustrating to be a mayor of a city where I cannot participate other than just being here at the meetings. And I think it's an important item that we should look at and we should change. And I think it should be a vote, and we can, whether it's up or down, it's something we need to have a conversation about. That's why I asked the city manager to put this on tonight. Councilmember Resendez?
I think it reads pretty clearly, and I think it reads good, but I mean, I wouldn't have any opposition to allowing the mayor to attend the meetings. Even if you attend the meetings, you're not going to give direction to department heads. You're still going to filter through the city manager. You're just asking for permission to be there.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I don't have any opposition to that. Thank you.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Richard?
I'd like to invoke our municipal code 2.04.110 and ask the mayor to ask the council to allow me to submit an abstract of my comments, so we don't not here all night long, to be included in the minutes per our municipal code 2.04.110, which says any city council member may request to the mayor the privilege of having an abstract of his statement on any subject under consideration of the council entered in the minutes if the council consents. So would you please put that to the council?
It's
so
fine.
I know if I can.
There's a consent of the council.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll vote for myself, yes. So here's, so I will submit an abstract of my statement, and I will go over some of this. The problem is that this would violate several provisions, not just the provision of the municipal code concerning the relationship between the city council members and the city manager. Some of those provisions are that the city council sets policy as a body, not as individuals. If the mayor attends a meeting, even if he doesn't speak, he has an influence. Just being there is an influence. That's why when people have to recuse themselves, they have to leave. It's not possible for any city council member, if you didn't attend and I attended, to attend a staff meeting without exercising some influence, either intentionally or unintentionally. Even if you don't say anything, or I don't say anything, we'll assume it's me. You're not there, I go. My presence can imply support. It can show partiality. It can intimidate the staff. It stifles expression. It hampers the staff's ability to do their job. Anything, body language, a scowl, a tone of voice, if I roll my eyes, if I cross my arms like that, it could send a message to the people who are there. Less than 2 years ago, this body, with the mayor's approval, passed a series of norms for the city council. And one of the most important norms said, I will abide by the separation of responsibilities between the city council, the city manager, and staff. The staff, except for the city clerks, the treasurer, and the city attorney, all work for the city manager. He can hire them and he can fire them. He can appoint them, he can unappoint them. If any council member as an individual goes to any meeting where other council members can't go, they would have an advantage over the other council members. And they're not allowed to have that in accordance with our policies. We have a policy that says that all council members are equal, that the chairman and the mayor pro tem only have some administrative roles that they do in addition to other council members. It goes into great detail in Protocol 1.4, which is also was adopted in 2017, again with the mayor's vote. And it says, for staff to carry out its responsibilities, city council members must avoid intrusion in those areas that are the responsibility of the staff. Individual city council members may not intervene in staff decision-making. The development of recommendations, the scheduling of work, the executing of priorities. This is necessary to protect the staff from undue influence and pressure from individual council members. That goes for everyone. And to allow the staff to execute priorities given by management to the manager by the city council as a whole. So it's just not reasonable to ask for that. Another problem is a disadvantage for some of the city council people who work. They can't even attend the meeting if they want to. So we would be then saying, well, we have to reschedule the meeting. If 3 or more wanted to attend the meeting, might have a Brown Act problem. If 5 of us attended the meeting, no one would believe we're not having a meeting behind closed doors because that's where this meeting takes place. The public simply would not put up with it. It's one step. I equate it to the step of saying, yeah, we're still going to have freedom of speech, but you cannot use the word protest. So you lose these abilities to have your relationships one step at a time. I've detailed all of this in my abstract. Many, many, many quotes from the municipal code, and especially from the protocols and the norms that were developed, and I've been scolded about not paying attention to, and sometimes I don't pay attention to them. But I paid attention to them this time. And so it's all there. I certainly would oppose it, and that's why I would oppose it, because the city manager has to be able to talk to his department heads bluntly and directly, and he has to be able to hear from them exactly the same way. The city manager is the filter. He's the one that makes sure that the staff does not become politicized. Nothing could be worse for the city of Hollister than to have the staff politicized, because it's just another version of the old boys network. It may be old boys, new boys, girls, or boys, but it's still the same thing. I thank you for your time.
Okay. Councilmember Lenore.
I think if you were a strong mayor, I might be able to support you in that
Please explain that
request.
so the public understands what you mean by
Oh,
that.
a strong mayor, well, he has more wide range of duties. And maybe there are mayors that, and other entities that do participate in day-to-day business. But our structure is set up as a weak mayor as opposed to the strong mayor, which I really feel like we're all equal up here. Your argument that people ask you things and you don't know everything that's going on, well, I get questions all the time, and if I don't know the answer, I have the city manager. I go and I meet with him. I meet with him a lot. I call him, I text him, I meet with him because maybe I don't know something, so I do that. And also, when I want to speak to the fire chief or the police chief or Mike Chambliss, I ask permission every time. Bill was gone. I wanted to talk to Brian and one other person, and I had to go through Mike Chambliss, the assistant city manager. So your argument that you're not up to speed on stuff, well, maybe it's because you need to have more of a meeting relationship with the city manager that is in charge of the employees. And from a retired city employee, I have to tell you that, and I know the meetings, and I do want staff to speak freely because that's when we get the best guidance is when they are able to be free thinkers without any politics. So I won't be able to entertain your requests there.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Spencer.
Okay, I just want to just clarify something. When Councilwoman Lenore said a weak mayor, our government is a council, city manager government, which means the council goes to the city manager and the city manager takes care of things. I will also concur with Councilwoman Lenore. Whenever I need to find out something, I call the city manager, I'll call Brett, I'll call the chief, I'll call anybody, and I get the answers I want. I look at my emails, I do everything. I'm definitely voting against this one.
Okay. So let me make something clear again. I'm hearing some confusion about information, so maybe I did not phrase that correctly. What I meant is the community expects that the mayor is actually involved at the staff meetings, in discussions with staff, participating more. Of course I should know what's going on, and of course I do speak to Bill and some of the others when things are happening. For the public to understand, there's different levels or formats of city government. You can have a charter city, which allows for a strong mayor. You can have a general law city who has different versions of how a mayor can participate. There are several ways to do this in a general law city like we have here, that the mayor could be more involved in functions of the city. Now, I'm not asking to take control of anything. That's not what I'm saying here. It's about participation in these meetings, knowing what's going on at the time, working with some more of the staff members. Of course, work with the city manager. The public out there does not know that in our city, the mayor cannot be involved in anything else. Cannot be involved with any other staff meetings or so on. I think it's important for the public to understand that and why that is. Because I've heard several times here, when things don't go good, it's, well, we don't know. You're the mayor. You're the mayor. Well, you know, these are the things I've heard here many a times, and I want to make sure we're clear that the public votes for a mayor for a reason. Now, again, I'm one vote. I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm not asking to get 2 votes out of my seat as mayor. I'm just asking to participate. You know, people will call and say, I want to come meet you at your office. All right, well, you're going to have to come to my office. And where is it? Well, it's down the street. Well, isn't City Hall over this way? I don't have an office at City Hall.
I have
That's pretty,
meetings here.
well, yeah, but we don't have an office here, let's
But
be
we
honest
use a
here.
room, whatever.
So I just want to make sure we're
That's
clear
a legal
about,
excuse.
Councilman Lenore,
Sorry.
of what's happening here. Now, as I've said early on, if the majority votes that no, they don't want any changes, I'm asking for it to go to a vote at a future meeting. If the majority says, no, we don't want to change, I understand, that's the vote. But what I want to do is put it to a vote, because I've heard in the past, again, others say, well, we never talked about it. Well, you know what? We're talking about it again. Because we have talked about it in the past when all of you were not here in previous councils, and we're having this discussion now, so we're clear about it. And I'm asking for this to be put onto agenda, future vote. And again, if your vote is absolutely no, that's your vote. But that's what I'm asking for, and I think it's important for the residents of our city to know how our city functions. That's it. Okay?
Mr. Mayor, let me
Yeah.
make another comment. I'm certainly happy to put it to a vote.
Thank you.
I want the people to understand. I hope they're watching. I don't see anybody much in the audience here. I see one member of the public. Thank you for coming. They're not exactly at the door with torches demanding to know the answer to this burning question, but I will read some more stuff. So even though I did an abstract, we will be here all night.
Well,
So I'll try to make it short so that you don't have to extend the meeting past 10 o'clock like we were required to do. I will try to make it short. This is, again, a city protocol, 1.3, and this protocol was voted on by the mayor in 2017, December 18th, less than 2 years ago, prior to me being on the city council, and I've been told, go to this document. I went to the document. It says the city council majority sets policy. It's important to note the city council acts as a body. No member, that would be me, I'm no, not just you, has any extraordinary powers. Even though I'm the mayor pro tem, I have no extraordinary power beyond other members. While the mayor and the mayor pro tem have some additional ceremonial and administrative responsibilities, in the establishment of policies, voting, and other significant areas, all members are equal. If one of us, let's assume it's me, so we don't put personalities in here, okay? Let's assume it's me. The mayor goes on an extended vacation, like, you know, he enjoys his vacations, and I don't blame him. But let's assume for some reason he needs to go away somewhere for a month. And I'm the mayor pro tem, and I'm sitting in for the mayor. And I go to a staff meeting, and I sit there and say nothing. It's not possible that I don't have an influence on that meeting by just being there. And since I have an expressionary face and I do a lot of body language, I will even have more influence on the meeting. So even if we allowed the mayor to go, we would have to allow all the council members to go. It's unreasonable to think that all the council members would go and it would not change the meeting, even if no one said a word. If 2 of us show up or 3 of us show up, it'll just make it worse. We assume that I go there and I'm the only one there and I send my body language things, I'm not happy with this, we're not doing that fast enough. I don't like the way this is going, and I come back, I have 2 choices. I can either tell people in public what I saw, which would be very bad for the staff, or I could tell other council members in private, which is bound to wind up as a Brown Act violation. Because if I tell one, I gotta tell them all, because I'm the only person at the meeting. It simply doesn't make any sense considering all the things we've written about not doing that. I mean, we've written policy after policy, not just one, but pages of policy saying, whatever you do, don't do that. Whatever you intend to gain is not worth whatever we're going to lose, in my opinion. This is my personal opinion. The other issue I would have with what people say and what they want to know is, and I hope I don't go around yelling, you're the mayor and you should know. I take my fair share of responsibility, I think. It's my personal opinion. You certainly know what this says. You signed it. You know exactly what it says. You could explain it to the public. You can explain it to the people who voted for you or people who oppose you and say, do you understand how our government is set up? Why do I need a vote? I'm willing to do it, but why do I need a vote to explain to them how our government's set up when every member of this council knows? And if somebody came to me and asked me, how does it work? I could tell them, and I have confidence that you know how it works, and you could tell them.
Okay.
That's my statement.
Okay,
That's
thank
all.
you.
Thank you.
All right,
I
Councilmember
appreciate it.
Sendes?
I won't threaten to keep you guys here all night. I'm going to make it brief and get to my points. I keep hearing that we're all equal, but we're not really all equal. We're not all required to do a citywide election. So we're not all equal. And I did hear the vice mayor say that the position of mayor comes with more administrative functions or services, so that might count as one of them. If we want to talk about like politicizing the staff and whatnot, like they work in a political environment, they work for the government, I'm sorry, but that just comes with the territory. And sometimes you can even have staff that's very politicized, so to speak, and then the subordinates are not happy with that, with those dynamics. That's just gonna happen, okay? So we can't use that as an excuse. And then I would just say, how do other cities function? If you can bring back that information, what they do, how they operate, give us some options. I think we should at least be open to the idea of exploring it. Thank you.
Thank you. There are several different formats out there in general law cities. The point, without having to go through more long speeches or more time, is, hey, as I said, if you don't want it, that's easy. We vote no. All I want to do is put it on to the agenda to allow the mayor to attend staff meetings. And if the vote is no, the vote is no.
Can I do it as simple as that?
As simple as that, okay? I don't want to make this thing complicated, but the reality is it's not all equal. I do represent the entire city. I'm the only person that has a 2-year term. Everybody else has a 4-year term. It is not all equal. We have issues here. The public expects a certain thing. I'm asking for it, and it's as simple as that, Bill. I don't want to make it complicated. I don't want to have to sit through an hour speech about why we shouldn't. Just put it on there, let's vote, and we go from there, okay? Thank
Your
you.
speech was only 29 minutes.
29 minutes, under 30.
You won't even have to extend it.
Only a half an hour. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move to item G5.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As normal, we'll continue to give you a general plan update on the process. As you heard Brian, the Development Services Director, Brian Swanson, mentioned earlier, we had a couple of staff members at a American Planning Association meeting in Santa Barbara at a place where not only several staff members, but there were also several consultants in attendance. We obtained 8 or more firms, and we direct marketed them. We've sent them to our RFP for the general plan update. We've also put it back on the APA's website under the RFP section. We've made them due now November 5th. That should be an adequate amount of time to get those back. So hopefully, if you'll recall, we had one local firm a while ago. The direction was to get that number up to something that we'd have an actual choice of. So hopefully, by this time next month, we'll have a much larger selection to choose from. So I will say that.
Excellent, thank you for the update.
No problem.
Any other questions from the public? Okay. HIJK and no business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
The motion, is there a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you.
Hey.
What do you know? Next year.
We're gonna go under the
See you guys.
bus like an hour.
Yes, I can. But there, you have that, and I will send you a Word document.
What?
Getting under the bus.
Oh, yeah. we're gonna